Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. He is widely regarded as the smartest man in the Marvel Universe. Introduced in Fantastic Four 1 in 1961, he is the leader of the Fantastic Four and one of the most influential minds in Marvel Comics. His intelligence is unmatched, spanning across multiple scientific disciplines, including physics, engineering, biology, and even interdimensional research. Reed's origins began with his early life as a child prodigy. Born to a wealthy physicist, Nathaniel Richards, Reed showed exceptional intelligence from a young age, and by the time he was in his early teens, he had already enrolled in university programs at institutions like MIT, Harvard, and Empire State University. And it was at Empire State University where he met his longtime friend and rival, Victor Von Doom, who would later become Dr. Doom. And during his time as a student, he also befriended Ben Grimm, who would go on to become the Thing. His defining moment came when he and his team, Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, embarked on a space mission that exposed them to cosmic radiation. And this accident granted them superpowers, turning Reed into Mr. Fantastic with the ability to stretch his body into any shape. And one of his greatest inventions is the Bridge, a device that allows him to view alternate timelines and realities, giving him insight into the consequences of different actions. He also played a key role in the creation of unstable molecules, a revolutionary fabric that adapts to the abilities of its wearer, hence why the Fantastic Four suit can withstand extreme conditions. And perhaps his most dangerous discovery is the ultimate nullifier, a weapon capable of erasing anything from existence, which even Galactus fears. And despite his brilliance, Reed's focus on science often makes him emotionally distant, straining his relationship with Susan Storm and the Fantastic Four. And he has played a vital role in Secret Wars 2015. He was one of the few who survived the collapse of the multiverse and ultimately reshaped reality itself after defeating Dr. Doom. And as a founding member of the Illuminati, a secret group of intellectual powerhouses including Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther, Reed has had a hand in some of the most consequential decisions affecting the Marvel Universe. So his intelligence has saved the world countless times, but it has also been his greatest flaw. Whether he is exploring new dimensions or struggling to balance his personal relationships, Reed remains one of Marvel's most fascinating and complex characters, and his legacy as the world's greatest mind is cemented, and no matter how many geniuses emerge, few can match the intellect and the impact of Mr. Fantastic. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. He is one of Marvel's most iconic characters. First appeared in Tales of Suspense 39 in 1963, Stark is not just a genius but a visionary, an inventor, and a businessman who built one of the most advanced suits of armor in comic book history. His intellect is often compared to that of Reed Richards, though while Reed is more of a theoretical scientist, Stark is a hands-on engineer and inventor. Born to industrialists Howard Stark and Maria Stark, Tony was a child prodigy who displayed an exceptional understanding of engineering from a young age, and by the age of 17, had graduated from MIT with degrees in physics and engineering. And despite his genius, Tony lived a reckless and hedonistic lifestyle, more interested in luxury and parties than in responsibility. And that changed when he was kidnapped by terrorists and forced to create a weapon. Instead, he built the first Iron Man suit, using his engineering brilliance to escape captivity. The Iron Man suits alone showcase his brilliance, evolving from a bulky, primitive design to highly advanced models equipped with nanotechnology, AI, and an arsenal of weapons. And his suits have adapted to various challenges, including space travel, deep sea exploration, and even fighting gods. And beyond his suits, Stark has revolutionized multiple fields. He has developed AI, energy solutions, and advanced robotics, and his company, Stark Industries, has been at the forefront of technological advancement. And while his intelligence allows him to anticipate and counter threats, it also isolates him, as he often believes he alone has the answers. And this arrogance has led to catastrophic mistakes, such as the creation of Ultron, the AI that turned against humanity. And there's also his battle with alcoholism, depicted in Demon in Battle in 1979, showcasing his struggle with addiction and self-destruction. So his intelligence is both his greatest asset and his greatest weakness. He's constantly improving, upgrading, and seeking perfection. But this relentless drive often blinds him to the emotional and ethical consequences of his actions. And throughout Marvel's history, Tony has played a key role in major events, from forming the Avengers to leading Earth's defense against cosmic threats, and his legacy extends beyond his own lifetime, as his influence continues through characters like Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, and his many AI constructs. In the end, Tony Stark is more than just a big man in a suit of armor. He is the embodiment of human ingenuity, resilience, or as he likes to say,
genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. He is one of Marvel's most iconic street-level heroes. First appearing in Daredevil 1 in 1964, he operates in the gritty, crime-ridden streets of Hell's Kitchen, battling criminals, corrupt officials, and even his own demons. He grew up in Hell's Kitchen, New York, raised by his father Jack Murdock, a washed-up boxer who wanted a better life for his son. Jack constantly emphasized education, pushing Matt to stay away from violence. However, everything changed when Matt saved a blind man from an oncoming truck, only to be hit by a radioactive substance that took his sight. And while he lost his vision, his other senses were heightened to superhuman levels, allowing him to see the world in a completely new way. Tragedy struck again when Jack Murdock was murdered by the mob for refusing to throw a fight. This loss fueled Matt's desire for justice, leading him to train under the mysterious martial artist Stick, and he's the one who taught Matt how to hone his enhanced senses and master combat. His superhuman senses allow him to hear heartbeats, smell chemicals, and track enemies with pinpoint accuracy. His radar sense acts as a form of echolocation, making up for his blindness, and his martial arts training, combined with his agility and reflexes, makes him nearly untouchable in a fight. And I didn't mention that he's also a lawyer, so Matt fights crime in the courtroom during the day, and as Daredevil, he enforces justice at night. His most dangerous enemies include Kingpin, the ultimate crime lord, who seeks to break Matt both physically and mentally. There is also Bullseye, a psychotic assassin with perfect aim, responsible for some of Matt's greatest personal losses, and The Hand, a deadly ninja clan that has tried to control Hell's Kitchen from the shadows. And there's also Muse, an unhinged artistic serial killer who sees murder as his personal masterpiece. Each of these foes reflects a different aspect of the city's corruption, forcing Daredevil to push himself to the limit to protect the innocent. And Daredevil stands out because he is deeply human, and his Catholic beliefs shape his actions, forcing him to question whether he is truly doing the right thing by taking justice into his own hands. He is the devil of Hell's Kitchen, he is its protector, its conscience, and its relentless warrior against injustice. Jessica Jones. First appearing in Alias 1 in 2001 under Marvel's Max imprint, a line aimed at mature readers. Jessica doesn't always want to be a hero at all. Instead, she is a hard-drinking, foul-mouthed private investigator who uses her enhanced strength and sharp instincts to navigate the dark corners of the Marvel Universe. Before becoming a PI, Jessica was just a normal teenager named Jessica Campbell. Her life took a tragic turn when her family was killed in a car accident involving a truck carrying radioactive chemicals. She survived the crash but fell into a coma, only to awaken with superpowers. Adopted by the Jones family, she tried to rebuild her life, eventually enrolling in Midtown High, where she had a brief crush on Peter Parker before he became Spider-Man. And inspired by heroes like the Avengers, she initially attempted to use her powers as a costumed vigilante named Jewel. However, her superhero career came to a brutal and horrifying end when she encountered Kilgrave, the Purple Man, a sadistic villain with the power to control minds through verbal commands. For months, Jessica was completely under his control, forced to obey his every order, unable to resist. The trauma she endured left her deeply scarred, shattering her confidence and making her realize the dangers of heroism. And after finally breaking free, Jessica abandoned her superhero identity and chose a new path, one that would allow her to help people without being in the spotlight. Jessica Jones reinvented herself as a private investigator found in Alias Investigations, a small detective agency specializing in missing persons, cheating spouses, and cases involving superpowered individuals. Though she tried to leave the hero world behind, her sharp mind, fearlessness, and superhuman abilities made her one of New York's most effective and relentless investigators. As of her abilities, they are straightforward but highly effective. She possesses superhuman strength, allowing her to punch through walls and take down enemies with ease. Her enhanced durability make her resistant to injuries, letting her withstand brutal beatings that would kill an ordinary person. And while she technically has limited flight, she rarely uses it, describing it more as an enhanced jump rather than true flying. Her greatest enemy is the one that I mentioned before, Kilgrave, who continues to hunt her long after she escaped his control. His ability to bend people's wills makes him one of Marvel's most disturbing villains, as his crimes are not just physical, but deeply psychological. She was in a relationship with Luke Cage, the two eventually marry and have a daughter, Danielle, and Jessica is also closely connected to Matt Murdock and has worked alongside the Defenders, though she often prefers to work alone. Jessica Jones stands out from other street-level heroes because she is deeply flawed, brutally honest, and unapologetically herself. She drinks too much, struggles with relationships, and often tries to push people away, yet she never stops fighting for the truth. All of this makes her a hero not in the traditional sense. She doesn't wear a cape, she doesn't have a catchphrase, and she doesn't care about public approval. But when people are in trouble, when the system fails them, or when the truth needs to be uncovered, Jessica Jones will stop at nothing to get justice.
Lifebringer Galactus. That's when the Devourer of Worlds became the Creator of Worlds. It's one of the wildest transformations in Marvel cosmic history, because we're talking about a guy whose entire existence was built on destruction, suddenly becoming a force of creation and renewal. This version of Galactus first appeared during the Ultimates by Al Ewing, and here's what happens. So after Secret Wars 2015, the multiverse gets rebuilt, and the cosmic status quo is shaken up. Galactus is still out there doing his usual thing, until the superhero team known as the Ultimates, which includes Captain Marvel, Blue Marvel, Black Panther, Spectrum, and America Chavez, decide to take on the impossible: fix Galactus. Using advanced technology and cosmic energy manipulation, they basically throw him into a massive cosmic incubator and force him through what's called a cosmic metamorphosis. When he emerges, he's golden, radiant, and recharged. As the Lifebringer, his purpose flips entirely. Instead of feeding on life, he gives it. He starts using his cosmic energy to revive dead planets and reignite dying stars. He becomes a creative cosmic entity, restoring balance to the universe that he'd spent eons devouring. He's no longer bound to hunger or destruction. He even develops a higher awareness of his own nature, realizing that his former existence as a destroyer was just one phase in a larger cosmic cycle. For decades, Galactus was portrayed as this necessary evil. Reed Richards, the Silver Surfer, and others all wrestled with the moral question of whether Galactus should exist. But the Lifebringer version says, what if he's not just a destroyer? What if he's meant to evolve? Of course, nothing that pure lasts forever in Marvel. Later stories like Ultimates 2 show that even as a Lifebringer, Galactus faces cosmic backlash. Beings like the Living Tribunal and Eternity see his new form as a disruption in the natural order. But every action in the cosmos has consequences, and Galactus' rebirth draws enemies, especially when reality itself starts questioning if a being of pure creation can truly exist without destruction somewhere else. In short, Lifebringer Galactus is the redemption arc of the universe itself. He goes from a symbol of cosmic hunger to one of cosmic harmony.
Hawkeye. His early life was rough, messy, and painful. He was trained in a circus, he dealt with abuse, he ran away, and he eventually ended up going down paths that were not heroic at all. And when he started out in Marvel Comics, he was actually viewed as a criminal, not because he wanted to be evil, but because he made bad choices, got accused of things he didn't actually do, and ended up tangled in the wrong situations. So his origin already sets the tone. Hawkeye didn't come from greatness, he had to build it. Then Black Widow entered his life and made it more complicated. Back when she was still a KGB spy and a villain herself, she manipulated Hawkeye, seduced him, and convinced him to help her fight Iron Man. At that moment, Hawkeye wasn't some loyal hero standing on the right side. He was literally helping a villain battle one of Marvel's main superheroes. He didn't see himself as evil, but he definitely crossed the wrong line and followed the wrong person. His relationship with Natasha was a big factor in pushing him toward anti-hero behavior early on. But even though Hawkeye started in that darker lane, he didn't stay there. He realized the path he was on wasn't who he wanted to be forever. Clint had the challenge, the drive, and the will to become something better. He eventually turned things around, changed his direction, and worked hard to become someone worthy of respect instead of fear. That shift was slow, but powerful, because Hawkeye chose redemption before he even had proof it would pay off. He eventually joined the Avengers, becoming part of the second wave of the team, alongside two other former villains turned heroes. And this is why Clint is such an important Marvel character thematically. He isn't a god like Thor. He isn't a genius billionaire like Tony. He isn't a super soldier like Steve. He's a guy with no powers at all, who made mistakes, screwed up, got manipulated, and still managed to fight his way into becoming a legend. He made mistakes even as an Avenger. He still doubted himself, he still struggled, he still had moments where he didn't know if he truly belonged, but he kept going anyway. He started from crime, misunderstanding, manipulation, and chaos, and he transformed into one of Earth's greatest heroes. Elixir. He is an extremely powerful mutant with the ability to control the biological structure of living beings. His main power, called biokinesis, allows him to heal injuries, cure diseases, manipulate life force, and even resurrect the dead. Because of the incredible scale of his healing abilities, Elixir is considered an Omega-level healer, capable of affecting biological systems down to the genetic level. At one point, he triggered a secondary mutation while using his powers to heal himself. After this event, his skin permanently changed to a metallic golden color, which became a visible sign of
of his healing abilities. This transformation is known as dichromatimorphic skin, and it reflects the state of his powers whenever he uses them. When Elixir uses his abilities to heal and restore life, his skin appears bright gold. However, when he uses his powers offensively, for example causing disease, injury or death, his skin shifts to a dark metallic black. And this change seems to happen automatically and may also affect his brain chemistry, showing the constant balance between his powers to create life or destroy it. Professor X. He is the founder of the X-Men and recognized as an Omega-level telepath. Xavier possesses what many characters in Marvel describe as the most powerful mind on Earth. His psionic abilities allow him to read, influence, and communicate with minds across vast distances. When connected to advanced devices like Cerebro, Xavier can link with nearly every mind on the planet. His telepathic powers allow him to perform an extraordinary range of mental feats. He can read thoughts, project his own ideas into others' minds, create incredible realistic psychic illusions, or cloak himself and others from mental detection. Xavier can also establish permanent mind links, erase memories, implant new thoughts, or temporarily control the actions of other people. His psychic strength allows him to unleash devastating psionic blasts that can render enemies unconscious or even kill them. Additionally, Xavier can sense the presence of mutants through their unique mental signatures, communicate across language barriers through telepathic translation, and even transfer his consciousness into another body if his own body is destroyed. Beyond telepathy, Xavier has demonstrated several advanced psionic abilities rarely seen among telepaths. He can project himself into the astral plane, where he can interact with other minds or create constructs made of psychic energy. Over time, he has also shown telekinetic abilities, as he can manipulate objects with his mind, disrupt advanced technology, and even dismantle powerful machines like Sentinels or Nimrod by tearing part of their components at a distance. Combined with his vast intelligence and leadership, Xavier remains one of these central figures in mutant history, shaping the future of mutant kind and guiding them toward peaceful coexistence with humanity.
Hope Summers, first appearing in X-Men 205 in 2007 as part of the Messiah Complex storyline, Hope is heralded as the first mutant born after the catastrophic events of M-Day, when Scarlet Witch decreed no more mutants, leading to the near extinction of the mutant population. Hope is often called the Mutant Messiah because of her potential and the hope she represents for the future of mutant kind. Her primary power is the ability to mimic the abilities of nearby mutants, and this makes her incredibly versatile and powerful in combat situations, as she can adapt her power set to match and counter the abilities of her allies and opponents alike. The narrative of Hope's life is marked by prophecy, conflict, and survival. As an infant, she becomes the target of various groups and individuals who either want to protect her as a symbol of mutant survival or kill her to prevent the potential she holds. Cable, the time-traveling mutant soldier, becomes her protector, raising Hope in the future where she can be safe until she's ready to return and fulfill her destiny. This relationship is central to her development, providing her with the skills and resilience needed to face the challenges ahead. Hope's significance extends beyond her individual abilities, as she plays a pivotal role in the Second Coming storyline, where her return to the present day sets off a series of events that culminates in her triggering the rebirth of the mutant race. And when she comes into contact with the Phoenix Force during the Avengers vs. X-Men event, her importance escalates as she becomes a host for this cosmic entity, which has the power to create and destroy on a massive scale. Overall, Hope Summers is a character defined by her potential and the symbolic weight she carries for a mutant kind, and with her ability to absorb the powers of other mutants and keep their abilities permanently without stripping the source mutant of their powers in the process, Hope could be a being of unlimited power. Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk. He is one of the most brilliant minds in the Marvel Universe. First introduced in The Incredible Hulk 1 in 1962, Banner is a genius-level scientist specializing in nuclear physics, biochemistry, and radiation science. While most people recognize him for his transformation into the Raging Hulk, his intellect is often overshadowed by his monstrous alter ego. Beneath the surface, Banner is one of the smartest individuals in Marvel, constantly pushing the limits of scientific discovery while battling his own inner demons. Bruce's intellect was apparent from a young age. Born to Brian and Rebecca Banner, Bruce was also a child prodigy, displaying an early understanding of advanced physics and engineering. Unfortunately, his childhood was deeply traumatic. His father, an abusive alcoholic, resented Bruce's intelligence and believed it was unnatural, and after witnessing his father kill his mother in a fit of rage, Bruce withdrew emotionally, throwing himself into his studies as an escape. His brilliance earned him a PhD in nuclear physics and gamma radiation, and later began working for the US government on an experimental gamma bomb project. And during a bomb test, Banner saw a young man, Rick Jones, wander onto the site. Without hesitation, Bruce rushed to save him, pushing him into a trench but absorbing the full force of the gamma radiation explosion himself. But instead of killing him, the radiation transformed him into the iconic Hulk. But despite this curse, Banner remains one of the most brilliant minds in Marvel, and one of his most intriguing creations is Banner Tech, an advanced form of nanotechnology that rivals Stark technology in efficiency. Banner's greatest struggle is not with external enemies, but with himself. He is often feared and hunted. Governments view him as a threat, and many superheroes hesitate to trust him, knowing that one emotional outburst could level entire cities. And while other geniuses fully embrace their intelligence, Banner is constantly at war with his own mind, fearing the consequences of his knowledge and power. Over the years, Banner has learned to merge his intelligence with the Hulk's strength, creating various versions of himself, like Professor Hulk. Banner is a man who could have been the greatest scientist in history, if not for the accident that turned him into the Hulk. But despite that, he continues to fight for good, using both his mind and his monstrous form to protect a world that fears him. Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. He's one of Marvel's most feared and controversial street-level characters. First appearing in The Amazing Spider-Man 129 in 1974, the Punisher operates outside the law, using lethal force to eliminate criminals. He's a man consumed by vengeance, waging a one-man war against crime in the most brutal way possible. Frank was once a decorated Marine, a highly skilled soldier with expertise in combat tactics, firearms and guerrilla warfare. He served multiple tours in war zones, proving himself to be one of the military's most elite operatives. However, his life changed forever when he took his family on a picnic in Central Park, unknowingly walking into the middle of a mob execution. His wife and children were gunned down in cold blood, leaving Frank as the only survivor. And when the justice systems failed to hold the killers accountable, Frank took matters into his own hands, becoming the Punisher, an unstoppable force dedicated to eradicating crime by any means necessary. As his name suggests, the Punisher believes in justice through punishment. He does not arrest criminals, he executes them. And his military training makes him one of the most dangerous men in the Marvel Universe, capable of outthinking, outmaneuvering, and outgunning nearly any opponent. His war on crime has made him enemies with organized crime syndicates, corrupt officials, and even superheroes who see his methods as too extreme. He also fought Kingpin and other villains including Jigsaw, a former hitman whose face was mutilated by Frank, and Barracuda, a ruthless mercenary who enjoys violence as much as Castle does. The Punisher has also clashed with some of Marvel's heroes, especially Daredevil, who sees him as a murderer rather than a hero. But despite their differences, there is a grudging respect between them, as they both fight for justice in their own ways. But again, he is not simply a killer. He is a man who has lost everything, and his war on crime is both a mission and a form of self-destruction. He knows there is no redemption for him, but he also knows he cannot stop. The Punisher represents the darkest side of vigilantism. Is he a necessary force in a world filled with corruption and violence, or is he just another killer? And that's why he is not your typical superhero. He's a soldier who never left the battlefield.
Ultimate Spider-Man. In this universe, Peter Parker doesn't become Spider-Man as a teenager. The maker, Eva Reed, literally swats the radioactive spider before it can bite 15-year-old Peter. Go in history for 2 decades. Peter grows up, marries Mary Jane, has 2 kids, Richard and May, and works at the Daily Bulge under J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben. Yup, he's alive here and co-running the paper. But something always feels off, like his life is missing a beat he was supposed to hear. Enter Tony Stark, playing time mechanic. To undo the Maker's sabotage, Stark recovers the preserved spider and sends it to Peter from 6 months in the future, with a message and a stealth spy tech suit. After Aunt May is killed in a laser strike on Manhattan, pinned on Stark by the Maker's Shadow Council, Peter decides enough is enough. With MJ and Ben backing him, he lets the spider bite and Spider-Man is born, but this time with a mortgage, a marriage, and PTA nights on the calendar. The first month is messy. Peter's learning to swing and sting basics while feeding photos of his masked self to the Bulge, not realizing Wilson Fisk owns the paper and loves the distraction. The real curveball, the other new vigilante targeting Fisk, is the Green Goblin, who turns out to be Harry Osborn. After they attack Team Bullseye, Harry deactivates Peter's suit as their gear syncs in a weird way, sees it's Peter under the mask, and invites him for a drink. The Goblin vs. Spider-Man rivalry flips into a wary alliance built on shared enemy number 1, the system the Maker left behind.
Home life stays center stage in the story. Peter's daughter May catches him in costume and basically becomes his hype coach. She even nudges the red and blue redesign. There's a charming double date here, Peter and MJ with Harry and Gwen Stacy, that quietly lays out the book's thesis. Power and responsibility aren't teen angst anymore, they are adult logistics. Peter and Harry then try a bold smash and grab on Fisk Tower, get absolutely folded by a souped-up Kingpin, and Peter finally levels with his kids, and MJ coins the name, Spider-Man. Cue the romantic rooftop swing. The science side gets spicier with Otto Octavius, who analyzes both vigilante suits and finds embedded AIs. Peter's is Peter, and Harry's is his father. Iron Lad pops in to remind Peter why his Pykocheck setup is unique. He was top of the makers, removed from history list. Peter ultimately ditches the armor, has the AI stay home as a guardian for MJ and the kids, and goes classic spandex. A nasty run-in with Black Cat tests his no-kill, no-collateral instincts and sparks a mini-ethics debate with Harry about what a hero really means in a crooked world. By fall, Peter's shooting for the paper, Ben and Jonah's new outlet, busting demon robberies and colliding with Mr. Negative, who weaponizes civilians against him. Exactly the kind of moral trap this older Spider-Man has to outthink, not just outpunch. And Ben quietly puts the pieces together and tells Peter he knows. That's the pulse of this run. Same heart, new stakes. It's the Spider-Man story about choosing the life you were denied, juggling diapers and danger, and trying to fix a broken city that was engineered to keep heroes off the board. Quicksilver. Just like his sister Wanda, Pietro first appeared as a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He joined because he believed Magneto was protecting him and Wanda from a world that hated mutants. His loyalty in the beginning came from fear and survival, not hatred. He was a villain because he felt like he didn't have a choice, and that twisted mindset shaped his early role in Marvel. Pietro has always had a very intense personality. His impatience, his quick temper, his arrogance, and his impulsive nature made him seem hostile and aggressive. People forget that Quicksilver always feels like the world is too slow, too frustrating, too ignorant, and too unfair. And when your entire life moves at superhuman speed, the whole world feels like it's constantly failing you. That frustration sometimes pushed him into darker decisions. So Quicksilver wasn't evil at heart, he was driven by emotion, stress, and a fear of losing the few people he actually cared about. When Wanda finally broke away from Magneto, Pietro followed her, and this was the moment that changed everything for both of them. They joined the Avengers under Captain America's leadership, and Quicksilver actually found a new identity. Instead of being Magneto's weapon, Pietro became someone who could protect others, someone who could make a difference without being controlled or used. Joining the Avengers gave Quicksilver purpose, structure, and stability, three things he never had before. And from that moment on, he truly started stepping deeper into real heroism. He became a long-standing hero across multiple teams like Avengers, X-Factor, and even involving himself with Inhumans at times. He worked with different groups, different dynamics, and different missions, and with each new chapter he got further away from the dark identity he once had. He evolved, learned, matured, and he kept choosing the hero role again and again, even when he struggled internally. He still has flaws, he still snaps, he still loses his temper, he still makes questionable decisions sometimes, but this is what makes his heroism feel real. He isn't good because he was always pure, he is good because he actively fights against his worst impulses every time. So today when people think of Quicksilver, they think of him as a hero, and that's the strongest part of his arc. He didn't need to be born noble to become a hero. He chose to move forward faster than anyone else, away from villainy and towards something better. The Scarlet Witch. Real name Wanda Maximoff, and first introduced in X-Men 4 in 1964. Originally depicted as a villain alongside her twin brother Pietro, the Quicksilver, under the tutelage of Magneto, her father, and she would later become a long-standing member of the Avengers. Wanda's powers originally included the ability to alter probability, causing unlikely events to occur within her line of sight, termed as hexes. Over time, her abilities were significantly expanded and redefined to involve chaos magic, granting her the power to alter reality itself. And this shift was marked by significant storylines such as Avengers The Assembled, where she suffers a mental breakdown that leads to the disbanding of the Avengers, and her infamous storyline House of M showcases her might, where she reshapes the entire world and empowers 98% of the mutant population with just 3 words: no more mutants. The true source of her powers is later revealed to be tied to the elder god Chthon, who marked her at birth with a fraction of his essence, enhancing her connection to magic. And this connection makes her one of the most potent magic wielders in Marvel Universe, capable of vast and unpredictable effects that can span from time manipulation to full-scale reality wrapping. Her character is often explored through the lens of her personal tragedies, including her volatile mental health, the loss of her children, and her struggle with her identity as a mutant and a witch. And because of that, her storylines often involve themes of grief, power, and control, as she wrestles with her abilities and the consequences they bring not only to her life but to the fabric of the universe. And all of these elements make her one of the more emotionally rich and dramatically compelling characters in Marvel's roster. In addition to the comics, Scarlet Witch has been a prominent figure in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where she was portrayed by Elizabeth Olsen. Her depiction in the MCU has brought her character to the forefront of mainstream media, especially with the series WandaVision, which explores her reality-wrapping abilities and her deep-seated grief. And to this day, WandaVision remains one of my favorite week-to-week viewing experience, not just within the Marvel Universe, but in general. Adam Brashear, aka Blue Marvel, is one of Marvel's most underrated yet incredibly intelligent characters. He first appeared in Adam the Legend of the Blue Marvel 1 in 2008, and he's a former soldier, scientist, and superhero, and a genius on par with Reed Richards and Tony Stark. But his contributions to science and heroism have been largely hidden due to the racism of the era in which he emerged. Adam was a child prodigy who grew up excelling in maths and theoretical physics. He attended Cornell University, where he earned multiple degrees in engineering and physics before being recruited by the US government as part of an experimental energy project, and his research focused on harnessing antimatter as a power source, which led to the negative reactor experiment, an attempt to tap into the negative zone for unlimited energy. However, the experiment went wrong, exposing Adam and his best friend Connor Sims to a mutagenic explosion. While Sims became the villainous anti-man, Adam was transformed into a being of unimaginable power, gaining superhuman strength, near invulnerability, and the ability to manipulate antimatter energy. So with his newfound abilities, Adam adopted the identity of Blue Marvel and became a superhero in the 60s. He fought crime and even prevented global disasters, earning him a reputation as one of the most powerful heroes of his time. However, when his identity was revealed, the US government ordered him to retire, fearing the backlash of having a black superhero at the height of racial tensions in America. So Adam lived a quiet life as a scientist and professor. Even after his retirement, Adam continued his research in quantum physics, antimatter, and cosmic energy manipulation. He has developed technology that can detect universal anomalies, built advanced power sources, and even discovered ways to harness energies beyond human comprehension. And despite being kept in the shadows for decades, Blue Marvel was eventually brought back into action by the superhero community when his power was desperately needed. He joined the Ultimates, a team of high-level strategists and cosmic problem solvers, alongside Black Panther, Captain Marvel, America Chavez, Spectrum, and Miss America. And as part of the Ultimates, Adam helped solve cosmic threats, prevent multiversal collapses, and even cure Galactus of his hunger, turning the Devourer of Worlds into a life-bringer instead of a destroyer. And unlike Tony Stark, who is often driven by ego, or Reed Richards, who can be emotionally detached, Adam is deeply compassionate. His moral compass is unwavering, and his decisions are guided by the desire to better humanity rather than seek recognition. And his intelligence is not just about creating new technology, but understanding the fundamental nature of the universe and how to use science responsibly. But he often struggles with the burden of being an icon and often doubts whether he should lead the charge, given the way the world once rejected him. Infamous Iron Man. Victor Von Doom, one of Marvel's greatest villains, decides to walk the path of redemption, not as Doom but as Iron Man. So in Infamous Iron Man 2016, written by Brian Michael Bendis, we witness one of the boldest reinventions of any Marvel character, Dr. Doom stepping into the role of Tony Stark after Stark's apparent death, as a genuine attempt to become a hero. Following the multiverse-shattering events of Secret Wars 2015, where Doom briefly wielded godlike power as the architect of Battleworld, he experiences a moment of clarity. He sees firsthand the consequences of his endless thirst for control and power. Stripped of his scars and cosmic power, he resolves to do something no one expects. With Tony presumed dead after the events of Civil War II, the world is left vulnerable. Doom steps into the vacuum not with arrogance but with a surprising sense of purpose. He creates a new suit of armor, combining advanced Stark technology with his own Latvian genius. He doesn't take the title Iron Man lightly. In fact, he fully embraces it, calling himself Infamous Iron Man, and fully aware that the world will never trust him. He begins hunting down villains like Matt Thinker and Diablo, and he operates operates in the shadows, and his mere presence is enough to strike fear into criminals and heroes alike. Yet the world refuses to accept him. The superhero community is deeply suspicious. Old foes like Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, and S.H.I.E.L.D. relentlessly pursue him, believing that this is just another Doom manipulation. But beneath the armor, we see a Victor Von Doom who is generally struggling with the weight of his past. He even visits Tony Stark's AI, which serves as his occasional conscience, providing sharp commentary on Victor's choices. And what's brilliant about Infamous Iron Man is that it never lets you forget who Doom is, even as it forces you to wonder if redemption is truly possible for him. Doom questions himself constantly, haunted by visions of his mother and his failures, but he also shows moments of real heroism, saving civilians, sparing enemies, and even risking his life to do the right thing. Victor's journey as Iron Man isn't about pretending to be Tony Stark. It's about proving he can be more than Dr. Doom. He embraces the legacy of Iron Man while trying to atone for his sins, carrying the burden of both his dark past and his hopes for a better future. Luke Cage. First appearing in Luke Cage Hero for Hire 1 in 1972, he is a man of the people, a streetwise hero who fights for justice in his community. With unbearable skin, superhuman strength, and a deep sense of responsibility, Cage has become one of Marvel's most respected and powerful street-level projectors. Born Carl Lucas in Harlem, Luke Cage grew up surrounded by crime and corruption. He and his childhood friend, Willis Stryker, became involved in gang activity. But while Cage tried to turn his life around, Stryker became increasingly dangerous. Framed for a crime he didn't commit, Cage was wrongfully imprisoned, and while serving time, he was subjected to an experimental procedure that gave him superhuman strength and unbearable skin. And using his newfound abilities, Cage escaped prison and cleared his name, vowing to use his powers to protect his community. Luke's main strengths are his invulnerability and sheer physical power. His skin is bulletproof, knife-proof, and even explosion-proof. His superhuman strength allows him to lift cars, punch through walls, and take on superpowered enemies head-on. However, his greatest power is arguably his connection to his community. He isn't fighting for the world, he's fighting for Harlem, his home, and the people who live there. His career began as a hero for hire, offering his services as a bodyguard and protector for those who couldn't rely on the corrupt police force. And over time, he transitioned from a paid mercenary to a full-fledged superhero, becoming one of the Defenders alongside Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones. And his sense of justice and responsibility led him to form his own crime-fighting team, and eventually leading the Avengers at one point. His greatest rival is Willis Stryker, aka Diamondback, his former best friend turned crime boss. Another major foe is Cottonmouth, a ruthless drug lord who runs Harlem's underworld. He has also gone up against powerful threats like Dr. Doom, proving that even street-level heroes can challenge the biggest names in Marvel. And as a black superhero created during the 1970s blaxploitation era, Cage has evolved into a culturally significant figure, representing strength and heroism in a way that is deeply tied to his roots, which makes him one of Marvel's most influential street-level characters.
Wolverine. Wolverine didn't always feel like the unstoppable rage machine we know today. In his early days, Logan was tough, durable, and hard to kill, but not impossible. Stab him deep enough, burn him badly enough, poison him long enough, and he needed time. His healing factor existed, but it wasn't instant. He limped after battle, slept off injuries, and carried his trauma in both body and mind. He was dangerous, yes, but still human in the cracks. Then Marvel cranked the dial past 100. Somewhere along the line, Wolverine's regeneration stopped being tough guy grit and became practically immortal. Bullets fall out of his skin, dismemberment means nothing, and even if you reduce him to a skeleton, he'll grow back. Organs, muscle, nerves, everything. He survived nuclear blast, walked out of hell, and regenerated from a single drop of blood. And with that came a Wolverine who fights like death doesn't apply to him. Logan now throws himself at armies, gods, sentinels, and demons with zero hesitation because pain is temporary and he comes back anyway. The healing isn't just recovery, it is fuel. The more he suffers, the sharper he becomes. Every cut just makes him angrier, and every bone broken grows back stronger. He's built like nature's revenge wrapped in claws. Yet his regeneration is only half the story. The adamantium skeleton and claws made him a walking weapon long before he became unkillable. His bones are nearly indestructible, his claws cut through steel like fabric, and his senses track prey miles away. Now combine all that with regeneration that ignores logic, and you get a character who can tank hits from the Hulk and return the favor with a feral grin. But as Wolverine became more invincible, something interesting happened. The danger faded. Early Wolverine stories carried fear. If Logan got shot, he bled and felt every inch of pain. Now the stakes are cosmic. Drop him in lava, he crawls out. Strip his flesh, he regrows it. Turn him to ash, he reforms eventually. His healing made him legendary, but it also made him inevitable. You can't win by killing him, you can only slow him down. He stands as Marvel's most iconic survivor, a weapon that refuses to die, refuses to stop, and refuses to break. His evolution isn't about gaining new powers, it's about losing his weaknesses. He went from a wounded brawler to a force of nature, wearing skin and adamantium. Laura Kinney, aka X-23. She's a clone of Wolverine and was created in the X-Men Evolution animated series before debuting in comics in NYX-3 in 2004, and later in her full origin story in X-23 Innocence Lost. She was born in a laboratory, the result of a Weapon X program attempt to recreate Wolverine, and unable to replicate Logan's Y chromosome, the scientists used his X chromosome to clone a female version and raised her as a weapon. From birth, Laura was trained to be an assassin. She was subjected to psychological abuse, conditioning, and torture, and even had her claws forcibly coated with adamantium, without anesthesia. Known only as X-23, she was sent on missions to kill, but despite her brutal upbringing, a spark of humanity remained. When she eventually escaped her handlers, she began searching for her own purpose, torn between the killer she was made to be and the person she wanted to become. Laura's journey took her through countless hardships. She was rejected, hunted, misunderstood, but through her connections with the X-Men, and especially Logan himself, she began to heal. Over time, she earned their trust and respect, and began to form relationships built not on fear or control, like she was used to, but on loyalty and love. And her bond with Logan evolved into something familial. They become like father and daughter in spirit. When Logan died during Death of Wolverine in 2014, Laura took up his mantle in All New Wolverine in 2015 by Tom Taylor. She wore the yellow and the blue, used the name Wolverine, and unlike Logan, Laura often tried to avoid killing. She showed restraint, compassion, and a fierce desire to prove that she was more than her programming. She battled against powerful enemies like the Orphans of X and Kimura, protected and raised a clone of herself, Gabby Kenny, aka Honey Badger, becoming a sister figure and emotional anchor. So she wasn't handed the mantle, she fought for it and earned it. She didn't try to become Logan, she became her own Wolverine. Old Man Punisher. He exists in the same future reality as Old Man Logan, a world where villains won, heroes fell, and society collapsed into gang-controlled territories. While most heroes died in the uprising, Frank Castle somehow survived. He never retired, never softened, and never stopped fighting. Even in a wasteland where hope is dead and justice means nothing, the Punisher remains a one-man war. He's older, slower, and badly scarred, but his hatred for criminals burns just as fiercely as it did in his prime. During the villain's takeover, Punisher fought alongside the remaining heroes in the Battle of New York. He even killed Elektra with a single shot, but Craven stabbed him in the chest and left him for dead, and the Red Skull displayed his shirt like a trophy. Everyone assumed Frank Castle finally fell, but this is the Punisher. He simply got back up, patched himself together, and went right back to killing anyone who threatened the innocent. 50 years later, after Logan kills most of the whole gang and destabilizes the wasteland's power structure, a new threat rises: the Punishers, a gang of violent wannabes who steal Frank's symbol and twist it into something even worse. They terrorize towns, kill men for sport, and kidnap children. For Frank, this is the ultimate insult. Not only are innocents suffering, but his symbol, once meant to strike fear into criminals, is being used by monsters. The thought alone is enough to drag him out of hiding. Logan eventually tracks down these Punishers, and when they ambush him, he's rescued by the real Frank Castle. And what follows is an unexpectedly emotional partnership between two tired killers who have lived too long. Logan wants to save the children. Frank wants to reclaim his stolen war journal, a precious artifact that preserves his memories as age begins to blur them. They bond over regret, age, and the weight of surviving when so many others didn't. And together, they decide to end the Punishers for good. Their assault on the Punisher's stronghold is brutal and cathartic. Even old battered, Frank Castle fights like a man, making his final statement to the world. He and Logan go through the gang, kill their leader, Panhead, and rescue the kidnapped children. But the victory comes at a cost. Frank is fatally wounded. He retrieves his stolen war journal, opens it to a photo of his family, and finally let himself rest. Old Man Punisher's story in Old Man Logan Annual 1 serves two purposes. It gives Frank Castle the kind of ending he never got in the main universe, and it shows that the wasteland is still full of stories waiting to be told.
Cosmic Ghost Rider. He is one of the most terrifying and overpowered versions of Frank Castle. He is an insane fusion of the Punisher, Ghost Rider, and a Herald of Galactus. This variant takes the already brutal and relentless nature of Frank Castle and applies it with supernatural and cosmic power. First introduced in Thanos 13 in 2017, his origin is set in a dystopian future where Thanos has conquered all life. In this timeline, the Punisher, who has already spent a lifetime waging war on criminals, finds himself alone after Earth's heroes are wiped out. Without crime to fight, Frank Frank is left with nothing but rage and regret, and when he dies, his soul is sent to hell. However, instead of finding peace, Frank makes a deal with Mephisto, becoming the new Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance, in exchange for the chance to keep punishing the wicked. But by the time Frank is reborn as Ghost Rider, he realizes it's too late. Earth is already dead, and Thanos has won. Left with no one to punish, he wanders alone for centuries, going mad in the process. Eventually, Galactus arrives, seeking help against Thanos, and Frank, desperate for purpose, agrees to serve him, gaining the power cosmic and becoming his new herald. Now wielding the flames of hell and the cosmic might of a herald, he transforms into something completely new, an unstoppable force with the power of God and the mind of a lunatic. And in the Thanos Wins storyline, Cosmic Ghost Rider serves King Thanos as his loyal companion and executioner, aiding the Mad Titan in conquering and destroying all opposition across the universe. Despite his overwhelming power, Frank Castle becomes somewhat resigned to this dark role, accepting it as part of his eternal punishment. As of his abilities, they include Hellfire Manipulation. As Ghost Rider, he can summon and control Hellfire, which burns the souls of his enemies. Power Cosmic, thanks to Galactus, he has reality wrapping abilities, near invincibility, and cosmic level energy attacks, superhuman strength and durability, and his Ghost Rider chains are now infused with cosmic energy, and his stare, which forces victims to relive their worst sins, is even more devastating due to his cosmic enhancement. And one of the most insane aspects of Cosmic Ghost Rider's story comes after Galactus falls, and he is once again left alone. When Thanos finally kills him, he is sent to Valhalla, where Odin offers him a chance at redemption. Instead of choosing peace, Frank asks to be sent back in time, to kill baby Thanos, before he becomes a monster. However, once he arrives, he can't bring himself to kill the child, and instead decides to raise him differently, hoping to prevent him from becoming the Mad Titan. And this leads to one of the wildest and most chaotic alternate Marvel stories ever, as Cosmic Ghost Rider tries and fails to raise Thanos into a better person, only to realize some monsters are inevitable. Cosmic Ghost Rider still follows Frank Castle's core belief, punishing the guilty. But as he learns, ultimate power doesn't mean ultimate justice. His story is a wild mix of darkness, humor, and literally cosmic insanity. Sentry. Real name Robert Reynolds, he first appeared in Sentry 1 in the year 2000. He is unique for his introduction into the Marvel Universe through a retcon that inserted him into the history of the Marvel Universe as a forgotten hero. Sentry is endowed with the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, making him one of the most powerful beings in Marvel Comics. His abilities include superhuman strength, speed and flight, as well as invulnerability, energy projection, and regenerative healing factors. Beyond these, he also possesses powerful psychic abilities, including telepathy and mind control, and one of his most notable feats is his ability to resurrect after being killed, further complicating his already complex nature. The core of Sentry's character is his struggle with his alter ego, the Void, a dark and destructive force that represents the opposite of everything Sentry stands for. The Void is capable of causing mass destruction and chaos, often acting as Sentry's nemesis, which only Sentry himself can contain or combat effectively. And this internal conflict makes Sentry a deeply troubled hero, constantly battling his own potential for destruction. His backstory shows that he was a meth addict who gained his powers by ingesting a super serum, initially intended to replicate the super soldier serum that created Captain America. The trauma of his transformation and the immense power it bestowed led to psychological instability, which manifested as the Void. And to protect the world from the Void, Sentry and key figures like Reed Richards and Doctor Strange made the world, including other superheroes, forget him entirely, until he was reintroduced into the Marvel narrative. Throughout his appearances, Sentry has been a member of various Avengers teams and has played crucial roles in major Marvel storylines including Civil War and Siege. Franklin Richards. First appearing in Fantastic Four Annual 6 in 1968, he is the son of Reed Richards aka Mr. Fantastic and Susan Storm aka Invisible Woman. Franklin inherited his parents' genetic predisposition to extraordinary abilities, manifesting his own from a very young age. Franklin's primary power is his ability to manipulate reality, a trait that allows him to alter the very fabric of existence according to his will. And this power includes the creation of pocket universes. They are entirely self-contained realities shaped by his imagination and desires. His abilities are not limited to simple physical alterations, as they extend into the domain of time manipulation, energy projection, and psychic powers such as telepathy and telekinesis, which makes him one of the most potent mutants ever. So despite his young age, Franklin has been depicted as possessing godlike powers, often classified at an Omega-level mutant status, and his potential is so significant that cosmic entities, including Celestials and Galactus, have recognized him as being of immense importance, and in Fantastic Four 604 in 2012, he even revived Galactus in a moment that the least I can say about it is absolute cinema. His capabilities have led to him playing pivotal roles in numerous story arcs, often as a key figure capable of resolving crises of cosmic proportions. In several narratives, he has been shown to use his powers to save the universe or significantly alter its course. However, it was revealed that Franklin's powers are not actually mutant in origin, and he has been gradually losing them. It's explained that Franklin's abilities to create universes was finite, and he has since used up this power, and this storyline has significantly changed the nature and extent of his abilities moving forward. But most recently though, he learned he never lost his powers after all. While his mutant status could return as well, the return of his powers puts him right back in the running. Valeria Richards. She's the daughter of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, first introduced as a baby in Fantastic Four 54 in 2002. She later aged rapidly due to time travel related events, and eventually emerging as a child prodigy with intelligence that rivals and in some ways surpasses even her father's. Unlike many other Marvel geniuses, Valeria's mind operates on a different level. She doesn't just solve problems, she sees solutions before the problems even arise. Initially, Sue Storm became pregnant with her second child, but complication arose due to cosmic radiation affecting the baby. Reed and the Fantastic Four tried everything to save the child, even seeking help from Dr. Doom. Tragically, Sue's pregnancy seemingly ended in a stillbirth. However, in a later storyline, it was revealed that the child had actually survived, but was transported into another timeline by Franklin Richards, her reality-wrapping older brother. And in this alternate timeline, she was raised under different circumstances before eventually returning to the main Marvel universe as a hyper-intelligent young girl. And upon her return, she renamed herself Valeria, and in a shocking twist, she even developed a close bond with Dr. Doom, seeking him as an uncle figure, and Doom, recognizing her potential, gave her the honorary title Valeria Von Doom. And even as a child, Valeria surpassed Reed Richards in sheer problem-solving ability. She has demonstrated an IQ far beyond human levels, capable of grasping complex physics, engineering, and theoretical science before she even became a teenager. And some of her most impressive feats include building devices that defy physics, including teleporters, AI systems, and interdimensional communicators, and also she can predict future events, as her intelligence operates at such an advanced level that she can foresee complex cause and effect relationships, making her decisions eerily precise. And like I mentioned, unlike her father who sees Doom as his lifelong enemy, Valeria acknowledges Doom's brilliance and in some cases even trusts him more than her own father. Doom in turn respects Valeria immensely, calling her his greatest student. And Reed is deeply uncomfortable with Doom's influence over her, but even he cannot deny that her mind operates on a level beyond normal human comprehension. However, her intelligence also makes her a potential cosmic threat. She grabs knowledge so quickly that she sometimes overlooks the ethical consequences of her actions. So whether she ultimately uses her genius for good or follows a darker path remains to be seen. However, one thing is certain, she is one of the smartest characters in the Marvel Universe, and her story is far from over. Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist. He is one of Marvel's most skilled martial artists. First appearing in Marvel Premiere 15 in 1974, Iron Fist is a master of mystical martial arts, channeling the power of the Iron Fist technique to unleash devastating, energy-infused strikes. Danny was born to Wendell Rand, a wealthy businessman who had previously discovered the hidden mystical city of Kunlun in the Himalayas. Hoping to return, Wendell took his family, including Danny and his mother, on an expedition to find it again. However, betrayal struck when Wendell's business partner, Harold Wisham, caused his death, leaving Danny and his mother stranded in the mountains. Pursued by wolves, Danny's mother sacrificed herself to save him, allowing Danny to be rescued by monks from Kunlun, an ancient city that only appears on Earth once every 10 years. Raised in this mystical land, Danny was trained in martial arts from childhood. His ultimate test came when he defeated the immortal dragon, Shu Lao the Undying, plunging his fist into the dragon's molten heart, and this granted him the power of the Iron Fist. But despite his destiny in Kunlun, Danny chose to return to New York to reclaim his family's legacy and seek justice against Harold Mitchum. His power set is rooted in both mysticism and martial arts mastery. His training in Kunlun granted him peak human agility, endurance, and combat abilities, making him one of the greatest hand-to-hand fighters in Marvel. However, his true strength lies in his ability to channel his chi into the Iron Fist, allowing him to strike with explosive force, capable of shattering steel and even damaging superhuman opponents. Upon returning to New York, Danny inherited Rand Enterprises, but instead of living as a corporate CEO, he used his wealth to fund his crime-fighting activities. He quickly became a major player in Marvel's street-level hero community, often teaming up with Daredevil and Luke Cage to fight organized crime and mystical threats. His greatest rival is Davos, the Steel Serpent, a former Kunlun warrior who was denied the power of the Iron Fist and has spent his life trying to take it from Danny. He has also clashed with Master Khan, a powerful sorcerer with ties to Kunlun. So as you can tell, Iron Fist differs from other street-level heroes due to his mystical connection and supernatural training. However, his power is not unlimited. Each use of the Iron Fist drains his energy, requiring meditation and recovery before he can use it again. But still, he is a warrior, a businessman, and a projector, constantly torn between his responsibilities to Kunlun and his duty to the people of New York. And despite his immense power, Danny Rand remains one of the most humble and dedicated heroes, always seeking balance between his martial arts mastery and his inner peace. Winter Soldier becomes Captain America. Of all the Marvel heroes who have taken up another's mantle, Bucky Barnes becoming Captain America is one of the most popular, emotional, and thematically rich stories in Marvel history. The seeds of this moment were planted long ago. Bucky Barnes was once Steve Rogers' loyal sidekick during World War II, but fate took a dark turn when Bucky was presumed dead after a bomb exploded during a mission. Bucky did survive, but his broken body was recovered by Soviet operatives, and his mind was wiped and reprogrammed, turning him into the Winter Soldier. Years later, Steve Rogers, now in the modern age, discovered that his lost friend was alive, but under the control of his enemies. Steve fought to free Bucky from his programming, using their shared history and deep bond to help him remember who he truly was. Steve succeeded, and Bucky began the long, painful road to redemption, haunted by the atrocities he committed as the Winter Soldier. Then came the moment that changed everything. In the death of Captain America storyline, Steve Rogers was assassinated following the events of Civil War. The Marvel Universe was left reeling, and America was without its symbol of hope. Tony Stark, recognizing the weight of Steve's legacy and knowing that the world needed Captain America now more than ever, offered the shield to Bucky Barnes. At first, Bucky refused. He didn't feel worthy, but eventually he accepted, not because he wanted to replace Steve, but because he wanted to honor him and prove to himself and the world that he could be something more than his past. As Captain America, Bucky brought a grittier, more tactical edge to the role. Unlike Steve's shining idealism, Bucky fought like a man who knew the ugliness of war up close. He combined the symbol of the shield with the pragmatism of the Winter Soldier, often carrying a firearm alongside the iconic shield. His fighting style was brutal and efficient, yet deeply protective, redefining what it meant to be Captain America. And Bucky's time as Cap wasn't just about honoring Steve's legacy, it was about atonement. He faced distrust from the public and skepticism from fellow heroes. He battled old enemies and his own inner demons, but through it all, he earned his place, proving that even someone with blood on their hands could rise to become a symbol of hope. Spider-Man 2099. He isn't a legacy hero who grew up idolizing Peter Parker. He's a brilliant geneticist working for the massive, corrupt, mega-corporation Alchemax. Miguel O'Hara is cocky, sarcastic, and absolutely not interested in superhero work. His whole life changes after he tries to quit his job over an unethical experiment, only for his boss to sabotage him by exposing him to a genetic rewrite. The experiment was meant to bond people with animal DNA. In Miguel's case, it gave him spider powers, but not the friendly neighborhood version. The year 2099 is neon, brutal, and ruled by megacorporations instead of governments. People live stacked in massive urban towers, cyberspace is everywhere, and crime is practically legal if you are rich enough. Miguel doesn't become a hero because he wants to. He becomes one because he is trying to survive in a dystopia where the entire system is built to crush people like him. His suit isn't spandex either, it's an unstable molecule costume with a skull-like spider emblem, fangs, talons, and a torn cape made from anti-gravity clothes. He looks less like Peter Parker and more like a futuristic predator. His abilities aren't just futuristic Spider-Man, he is more like a genetically enhanced apex creature. He has talons on his fingers and toes that let him cling to walls, organic weapon that shoots from the top of his wrist, enhanced range and hearing, tuned to a dangerous world, fangs with a paralyzing venom that can take down enemies instantly, and superhuman vision that can zoom and process fast motion. Miguel doesn't pull punches either. He fights brutally because the enemies he faces are engineered weapons, gangs with military tech, cybernetic monsters, and Alchemax strike teams, where Peter Parker fought
fought bank robbers, mad scientists, and personal tragedies, Miguel fights corporate tyranny. Alchemax owns the police, the government, and even parts of society. Spider-Man 2099's enemies aren't just supervillains. They are entire institutions designed to keep the poor miserable and the powerful untouchable. That's why Miguel wears the mask, to become a symbol of rebellion in a world that has completely lost hope. His relationships are a big part of why he feels so human. He has a complicated history with people around him, a controlling boss who literally turned him into a mutant, a fiancé he distances himself from out of guilt, a brother who hates corporations even more than he does, and a mother who barely trusts him. Miguel spends as much time cleaning up emotional disasters as he does punching cybernetic killers. His story is less about balancing life and heroism, and more about someone trying to rebuild himself after everything breaks. This version of Spider-Man lasted because he brings something totally unique to the Spider-Man mythos. He's not a copy, not a successor, and not a reboot. He's a completely different kind of hero with his own struggles and worldview. His stories blend cyberpunk, body horror, rebellion, and tragic humor into something that feels like Blade Runner mixed with Spider-Man. Whether he is teaming up with the multiverse in Across the Spider-Verse or fighting Alchemax alone in the comics, O'Hara is the version of Spider-Man built for a future that forgot what heroes look like. Sister Sorrow. She started as a normal human who made the worst kind of desperate choice. Trying to save her father's life, she made a deal with Mephisto, the Prince of Lies. Basically the #1 being in the Marvel Universe you should never trust. The bargain was simple. Her father would live, but she would belong to hell forever. That single moment condemned her to centuries of servitude, stripping away her humanity piece by piece until even her original name faded, replaced by the title Sister Sorrow. As Mephisto's agent, Sister Sorrow was sent across centuries and continents to do his dirty work. Her main task was hunting down the Soul Draggers, ancient relics tied to the bloodlines of the original Lords of Darkness. Each mission meant killing people who had committed no crime other than being born into the wrong lineage. She obeyed without question at first, even when mystics like Gyu of Kunlun begged her to stop and claimed they could free her. Over time, her obedience turned into emptiness. She stopped thinking of herself as a person and became nothing more than a walking command. Everything began to change when Sister Sorrow crossed paths with Dr. Doom. During a confrontation over one of the Soul Draggers, Doom saw through Mephisto's magic and forced her to confront the truth. Doom made her realize that Mephisto's power over her only existed because she believed escape was impossible, and that realization didn't free her immediately, but it planned out. For the first time in centuries, Sister Sorrow began questioning not just her master but herself. As her missions continued, Sister Sorrow secretly began reaching out to other cosmic manipulators like Dormammu and Loki, learning how demons, gods, and tricksters exploit contracts and loopholes. Her encounter with Loki was especially important. He mocked her obedience and outplayed Mephisto's blood pact, using nothing but clever wording. Watching Loki walk free from hell did something huge to Sorrow. It showed her that rebellion didn't have to be loud or violent. It could be strategic, patient, and cruel in the same way demons are. And when Mephisto finally gathered all 5 Soul Daggers and began rebuilding the Soul Forge, Sister Sorrow made her move. Pretending to help, she turned on him mid-ritual, triggering an all-out war in hell involving Doom, Dormammu, Loki, Red Skull, Green Goblin, and Abomination. In the chaos, she secretly removed the Soul Forge from Mephisto's control and revealed the truth. She now held power over billions of souls, but instead of ruling, she demanded only one thing: her freedom. For the first time, Mephisto had no lie left to tell. He burned the pact that bound her and released her. Invisible Woman. When she first appeared, Sue Storm was written like the team's emotional support character, helpful, kind, but rarely the one throwing punches. She faded into the background not because of her power, but because of the era she was written in. Early Sue was more damsel than danger, disappearing literally and narratively while the boys got all the glory. Then writers stopped treating her invisibility like a party trick and realized how insanely deadly it could be. Sue's powers weren't just about disappearing. She could generate invisible force fields, shape them into weapons, and crush a person from the inside out, without leaving a mark. What started as a passive stealth mutated into raw, terrifying control over invisible energy. John Byrne's era turned her into something new, the powerhouse of the Fantastic Four. Reed may be the brains, Johnny the fire, Ben the muscle, but Sue is the wall, the sword, and the nuke all at once. She can shield cities from cosmic blasts, stop bullets mid-air, throw shockwaves like cannons, and isolate villains inside impenetrable, invisible prisons. The team doesn't survive without her. She became their frontline and final defense. Her powers also scale aggressively with emotion addition, when Sue is calm, she's tactical and controlled, but when she's furious or protecting her family, she becomes unstoppable. She's blown force fields through titans, shut down cosmic threats, and even staggered beings far above planet level. Villains who underestimate her because she's quiet usually regret it in seconds. She can suffocate them by removing air, implode them with pressure, or cut them apart with invisible constructs. She doesn't need to touch you, she just needs to think. People assume her invisibility is defensive, but really, it's the warning before the storm. Adam Warlock. He debuted in Fantastic Four issue 66 and 67 back in 1967 as simply him, a golden artificial human created by a group of scientists calling themselves the Enclave. Their goal was to build the perfect human being, but him immediately rebelled against their control and blasted off into space. Early on, he was barely a character. He talked like a confused toddler with godlike powers, and nobody really knew what to do with him. Even Stan Lee and Jack Kirby left him behind quickly, leaving his superpowered golden mannequin floating around the Marvel Universe without a mission. After his debut, him drifted through a couple of random stories. He fought Thor, got cocooned a few times, and acted more like a cosmic pet project than a real hero. He had power, but no personality. Marvel basically shelved him because he was too odd to fit anywhere. Not human enough for street-level stories, and not defined enough for cosmic arcs. He was just there, a cool design with no purpose. Everything changed in the 1970s when Jim Starlin got his hands on the character. Starlin took his abandoned experiment and rebuilt him entirely, renaming him Adam Warlock and giving him a new destiny. He handed Adam the Soul Gem, which later became known as one of the Infinity Stones. Starlin reimagined Warlock as a tragic, philosophical wanderer, someone constantly wrestling with morality, free will, and the darker parts of his own soul. This is also when Adam crossed paths with Thanos, setting up one of the most iconic cosmic rivalries in comics. Under Starlin, Adam Warlock's stories went from we made a perfect man in a lab to existential cosmic opera. Warlock fought his future evil self, battled intergalactic tyrants, died multiple times, and even became a savior figure for alien civilizations. The tone was surreal, psychedelic, and philosophical, way ahead of its time. These arcs cemented him as a core part of Marvel's cosmic mythology, especially during events involving the Infinity Stones. Warlock's publication history is famously inconsistent. He'll vanish from Marvel for long stretches, then suddenly reappear whenever a major cosmic event is about to explode. Infinity Gauntlet, he's there. Infinity War, there too. Annihilation, front and center. He's basically the break glass in case of cosmic emergency character. When the universe is in trouble, Adam shows up, usually with a mysterious plan he refuses to explain until the last possible second. For decades, Adam felt too complex and too weird for live action, but his cocoon finally appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and he fully emerged in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's wild to think that a character Marvel once had no use for became a major cosmic pillar with one of the richest mythologies in the universe.
Mark Spector, aka Moon Knight. First appearing in Werewolf by Night 32 in 1975, he is often compared to Batman due to his wealth, gadgets, and detective skills. But Moon Knight is far more psychologically unhinged, operating with multiple identities and a violent, almost supernatural approach to crime fighting. Mark was born into a Jewish American family, but instead of following a traditional path, he became a Marine, a CIA operative, and eventually a mercenary. And while working as a hired gun in Egypt, he was betrayed by his employer, Raoul Bushman. Left for dead in the desert, Mark collapsed beneath a statue of Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon. Miraculously, he survived, believing that Khonshu has resurrected him and chosen him as his avatar on Earth. After this experience, Mark reinvented himself as Moon Knight, adopting the white cloak and crescent symbol of Khonshu to wage war on criminals. However, whether Khonshu is truly guiding him, or if it's all in his head, remains a mystery. Moon Knight relies primarily on his physical conditioning, combat skills, and unrelenting brutality. However, he has occasionally displayed enhanced abilities under the light of the moon, hinting that his connection to Khonshu might not be entirely psychological. And one of the most fascinating aspects of Moon Knight is his dissociative identity disorder. Mark Spector operates under multiple alter egos, each serving a different purpose. There's Mark Spector, the original identity, a former mercenary and brutal hand-to-hand fighter. There's Stephen Grant, a wealthy businessman persona used to fund Moon Knight's war on crime. There's Jake Lockley, a streetwise cab driver who gathers intelligence from the criminal underworld. And Mr. Knight, a refined detective-style persona who handles investigations with precision. These different personalities make Moon Knight one of the most psychologically complex heroes in Marvel as he constantly struggles with his own identity and sanity, and his fractured mind blurs the line between reality and hallucination. And as of his foes, there's Roll Bushman, the mercenary who betrayed him, now a sadistic warlord with a bloodlust even more extreme than Moon Knight's. There's also the Midnight Man, a master thief with a personal vendetta against him, Black Spectre, a corrupt politician turned villain who tries to become the anti-Moon Knight using fear and manipulation, and the Sun King, a psychotic cult leader who believes he is the avatar of the sun god Ra, making him the perfect opposite to Moon Knight's connection to Khonshu. Moon Knight is willing to cripple, maim, or even kill his enemies, but his conflicted psyche keeps him from fully embracing darkness, and his brutality and unpredictability make him both feared and respected even among fellow heroes. But despite his instability, Moon Knight continues to protect the innocent, proving that even a fractured mind can hold the heart of a hero.
Miles Morales. Introduced in Ultimate Fallout 4 in 2011, he was created following the death of Peter Parker in Marvel's Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610. At first, fans were skeptical. Could someone else really be Spider-Man? But over time, Miles didn't just live up to the name, he redefined it for a whole new generation. Miles is a biracial teen of Puerto Rican and African American descent, growing up in Brooklyn with a loving mother and a more complex relationship with his father. When he's bitten by a genetically altered spider stolen from Oscorp, he gains abilities similar to Peter Parker's, but with a twist. Miles can turn invisible, generate a powerful venom blast, and has a slightly different fighting style, more unpredictable and agile. At first, he doesn't want the responsibility. He's just a kid, terrified of the consequences. But when Peter dies fighting the Green Goblin, Miles realizes that great power really does come with great responsibility. So he dons a Spidey suit and steps into the role. He still struggles with the same things Peter did, balancing school, family, friendship, and hero work, but he also carries the weight of expectation and identity by being a Spider-Man. Over time, Miles earns the respect of the Marvel Universe. He fights alongside the Avengers, the Champions, and even Peter Parker himself after the multiverse merges in Secret Wars. He stars in beloved solo runs, and he anchors into the Spider-Verse and across the Spider-Verse, bringing the soul of Spider-Man to the big screen for a wider audience. So he honors Peter's legacy without copying it, bringing his own culture, struggles, and voice to the role. He's funny, humble, brave, and constantly growing, whether it's fighting the Prowler, facing off against multiversal threats like the Inheritors, or hell, just surviving high school. Miles Morales rises to meet the legacy and then builds something new with it. Shadowcat becomes Star-Lord. Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, is a space outlaw, helmet-wearing rogue, and leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But in a surprising twist from Marvel Comics, the role of Star-Lord was once taken up by none other than Kitty Pryde, the longtime X-Men mainstay and mutant. This unexpected transition happened during the Black Vortex crossover event in 2015, and its aftermath. At the time, Peter Quill and Kitty Pryde were romantically involved, and Peter had taken on more official responsibilities in the newly restructured Galactic Council, leaving his Star-Lord duties behind. And with Peter stepping into politics, he needed someone he trusted to watch his back and to protect the galaxy. Enter Kitty Pryde. Kitty had already proven herself as one of the X-Men's most capable and level-headed leaders, but this was a whole new arena. She donned Peter's signature Star-Lord helmet and gear and officially became the new Star-Lord, complete with her own title in Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde and her ongoing presence in the Guardians of the Galaxy books around that time. As Star-Lord, Kitty retained her core powers, phasing through solid matter, disrupting electronics, and making herself nearly untouchable in combat. But she also adapted the spacefaring lifestyle quickly, showing off her leadership skills, quick wit, and her willingness to make hard calls in high-stakes scenarios. And her time wielding the cosmic enhancing Black Vortex had briefly given her godlike power, which she later relinquished, but it left her changed, more confident, and capable of operating on a galactic level. Kitty's version of Star-Lord wasn't about being a charming space pirate, it was about being the moral compass in a lawless corner of the universe. She balanced her mutant loyalty with the larger responsibilities of a guardian. She fought alongside Rocket, Groot, and Drax, she faced cosmic threats, and she showed the universe that a mutant from Earth could be just as much of a cosmic hero as anyone else. And of course, eventually Peter Quill returned to the role of Star-Lord and Kitty stepped down, resuming her life with the X-Men. The Fallen One. It is a future version of the Silver Surfer who appears in the Thanos Wins storyline, and this version of Norrin Red is not the noble herald of Galactus we once knew, but a vengeful, utterly relentless survivor in a universe gone to ruin. So in this bleak future, King Thanos, the older version of the Mad Titan, has already won. He has slaughtered every hero, cosmic god and concept, only one being continues to defy him across the vast emptiness of the cosmos, the Fallen One, who is revealed to be Silver Surfer, wielding Mjolnir, the hammer, hammer of Thor. Yes, you heard that right. After centuries of loss, regret, and rage, Silver Surfer became worthy. And the transformation of Norrin Radd into the Fallen One is one born from survival and desperation. He wanders the dead universe for thousands of years, outliving Galactus, the Celestials, and every vestige of life. His once smooth, polished appearance is now scarred and worn, and his power cosmic remains intact, but is fused with the godlike strength of Thor's weapon, making him one of the most powerful beings left in existence. And when the Fallen One arrives at Castle Doom, King Thanos' fortress at the end of time, he is nothing like the peaceful herald he once was, no longer a seeker of balance. Norrin here is a being forged in darkness, and behind him swarms the Annihilation Wave, his final army against the Mad Titan who consumed all things, and his body now saturated with black matter, the primordial force said to bind galaxies together. But Thanos was ready. Knowing the Surfer's return was inevitable, King Thanos had the Cosmic Ghost Rider travel back in time and drag his younger self to the end of time. Now two Thanos incarnations stand united to face the last rebel in the universe, and as the battle erupts, the Annihilation Wave is annihilated, not by Thanos but by Cosmic Ghost Rider, who unleashes Hellfire under a cosmic force to burn it all to ash. But the Fallen One presses forward, with the power cosmic merged with Thor's enchanted hammer and the density of black matter flowing through him. He tears into both young Thanos and King Thanos and the Rider. He destroys the Ghost Rider, and the fight draws out the final weapon King Thanos had held in reserve, the Hulk, or at least what's left of him. And when the two lock eyes, Norrin speaks softly. He doesn't fight the Hulk, he reaches him. Through all the madness, he finds Bruce Banner still buried inside, calming him and helping him revert to his human form. Norrin finds his friend, for a brief moment at peace. But from behind, King Thanos strikes, wielding the Twilight Sword, and in a brutal move, he impales both Bruce and Norrin through the back. Both Young and old Thanos descend on him, beating him mercilessly, and finally, King Thanos kills the last light of the universe by impaling the Fallen One's skull on Mjolnir's handle. The God of Stories. Loki has always been the god of mischief, the schemer, the backstabber, the troublemaker who somehow keeps surviving every mess he creates. But Agent of Asgard flips the script and gives him one of the most satisfying glow-ups in Marvel history. Over the course of the series, Loki works to rewrite his own myth, literally trying to change the story of who he is. He doesn't want to be locked into the same old cycle of trick, betray, get punished, repeat. And by the end, he actually pulls it off. He becomes the god of stories, a completely new version of Loki. The cool thing here is that this isn't just a power-up where Loki throws bigger magic blasts. As the god of stories, Loki essentially steps outside the narrative. He gains control over his own fate, and even to some extent, the fate of others, by shaping the story around him. It's Marvel's way of saying Loki is done playing the villain in everyone else's saga. Now he's the author of his own legend. Visually, this form is gorgeous. He's calmer, wiser, and for once, honest about what he wants. This Loki isn't just trying to prove himself to Odin or out with Thor, he's trying to become something better, something that makes sense of all the pain he's caused and all the suffering he's endured. What makes this version so fun is that Loki still has his charm and mischievousness. He hasn't become boring or saintly, he's just not trapped anymore. When he faces King Loki, a future version of himself who represents everything terrible Loki could become, he literally writes the ending and chooses a different path. It's like a redemption arc, but done in the most Loki way possible, with cleverness, wordplay, and just a little bit of trolling. Power-wise, this is Loki operating on a meta level. He can manipulate stories, change perceptions, and essentially guide how events play out. It doesn't make him omnipotent, but it does make him one of the most influential forces in the Marvel multiverse. He can be a hero, a villain, or something completely outside that binary, wherever the story needs him to be. Fans love God of Stories Loki because it's the ultimate payoff for years of Loki's character development. It shows he's more than just the perpetual bad guy. He's someone who can grow, change, and even inspire. It's a fresh start, but still undeniably Loki, which is what makes this transformation one of the most satisfying ultimate forms Marvel has ever done. Ultimate Black Panther. This T'Challa opens as a king already in motion. Ruler of a split heritage Wakanda, there are upper and lower kingdoms, flanked by Shuri as his razor-smart co-ruler and Okoye as queen and steel spine general. It's a nation of bright tech and tight borders, sitting on the usual vibranium secret. But the twist is, outside the walls, Khonshu and Ra are annexing the continent by proxy, fleeing Moon Knight commandos and preaching empire. T'Challa senses war coming in visions, hears it from spies, even feels it in the streets, and still hesitates.
purpose. He wants to be the king who chooses precision over fire. And that restraint shatters during the Festival of Life. A suicide bomber hits the royal platform. T'Chaka throws himself between the blast and his son. That's the line T'Challa won't let anyone cross. He declares war on Moon Knight, then spends a brutal month hunting the infiltrator and nearly breaking his own people with suspicion. The course correction is spiritual as much as tactical. A visit to Matron Imala of the Vodokan sets a new compass, prophecy of an heir and of a woman of light who will stand with him. In simpler terms, he needs allies, not just armor. Then the Wilderness arc happened. Chasing leads on conscious supply lines, T'Challa gets ambushed and then saved by Storm, who's running with Killmonger as a freedom fighter, not a usurper. Weeks off the Great reshape the board, the trio find an ancient pre-Wakandan temple pulsing with anti-vibranium. Back home, that discovery detonates every relationship. An assassination attempt mind-controlled by the gods hits Shuri and Okoye, a would-be culprit, turns to dust before questioning, and T'Challa pulls his inner circle of force together, himself, Shuri, Storm, Killmonger, to fight a war that's half insurgency, half apocalypse myth. In the lab, Storm's lightning jumpstarts the sample, and the siblings learn anti-vibranium can accelerate life. In the temple, Imala shells an origin of metals as tears of the gods, and warns that using vibranium as a throne may twist the king who sits on it. While T'Challa is juggling prophecy and physics, Khonshu steals the anti-vibranium and starts staging miracles across Africa, building a zealous army. T'Challa steps into the open, clashes with the god in broad daylight. And here's the only answer that matters. War is inevitable. From there, it's full tilt. August-September turns into rolling battles, Dora set pieces, surgical strikes with Storm and Killmonger, prison breaks to free Moon Knight's captives, and in the Garden of Bast, Imala lays down the scariest idea yet. Vibranium is sentient, not magical metal. Someone you can offend. T'Challa asks for mystic help and keeps fighting anyway, until an anti-vibranium blade slices his thigh, and he wakes days later different. He can hear vibranium, command it, feel Wakanda's soul in the weave of his suit and the roots of the city. The king and the metal aren't partners anymore. They are one conversation, and that's the moral knife edge. Khonshu turns the conflict into a holy war, stage managing crowds and cameras. The vibranium in T'Challa's suit whispers the easy solution: strike the god down where he stands. Shuri pulls him back from that ledge, because this line's Black Panther isn't about winning with a bigger hammer. He's about choosing what kind of king survives victory. Between Storm's Skyfire, Killmonger's insurgent brain, Shuri's science, and a nation that literally speaks to him, T'Challa's path is clear. In the Crusade, free the continent, and do it without becoming the thing Wakanda fears, another god who treats people like ore. Earth X Reed Richards. In this universe again, Reed isn't the confident, adventurous leader of the Fantastic Four anymore. He is living in self-imposed exile inside armor that resembles Doctor Doom, not because he turned evil, but because he feels responsible for everything that went wrong. After the death of Sue Storm and the disbanding of the Fantastic Four, Reed retreats into Latveria and begins wearing Doom's armor as both penance and protection. This version of Reed is consumed by regret, and he also blames himself for failing to prevent the world's descent into chaos, for not stopping the spread of the Terrigen mist that mutated the entire human race, and for being unable to save his wife. Reed genuinely believes that, as the smartest man on Earth, he should have seen it all coming. His intellect, once a source of optimism and wonder, has become a prison. He's still brilliant, still scheming and analyzing, but now it's all directed inward, spiraling through memories and missed chances. And about the Doom armor, it's a commentary on how close Reed and Victor Von Doom always were. Both men were obsessed with control, with fixing the world in their own way. In Earth X, Reed finally sees that maybe he was never that different from Doom in the first place. So the line between savior and tyrant gets blurrier when the world falls apart. But his transformation isn't technically a heel turn. But despite all this, Reed still fights. Throughout Earth X, he helps uncover the truth behind the Celestials and Earth's hidden cosmic purpose. Even though he's broken, he still chases knowledge, still tries to save humanity in the only way he knows how. He becomes a key figure in unraveling the big picture, even if he doesn't fully forgive himself. He's haunted, introspective, and deeply human. Someone who once reached for the stars and now hides behind the mask, asking if it was ever worth it. He's not a villain, not a hero, just a man who tried to do everything right and ended up watching it all burn. And somehow, in my opinion, that makes him one of the most compelling versions of Mr. Fantastic ever written, other than the Maker. Old Man Hawkeye. He is guilt barton, grizzled, going blind, and running out of time. Set in the same Wastelands universe as Old Man Logan, Clint's story unfolds years before Logan's journey, when the world is still adjusting to the fallout of the villain's takeover. He is one of the few heroes left, but he is not the cocky archer from the Avengers anymore. He is quieter, angrier, and haunted by the guilt of surviving when so many didn't, especially the other Avengers. In this future, Clint is slowly losing his eyesight due to a degenerative condition, which for a marksman is basically a death sentence. He's well aware that he doesn't have much time left as Hawkeye, and that ticking clock gives his story urgency. Before he goes blind, he wants to settle a score, one that's been eating at him for decades. Years ago, his former teammates in the Thunderbolts betrayed the superhero community and helped the villains win. Now Clint is on a brutal revenge tour, tracking them down one by one. As you know, the cool thing about Old Man Hawkeye or any version of Hawkeye is that he's not superpowered. He's not healing like Logan or wielding thunder like Thor. He's just a man with a bow. But even in his broken state, Clint is as deadly. He is smarter than his enemies expect, more determined than they can handle, and his aim, even as his sight fades, is still terrifyingly precise. The story made him a survivor with a mission, and that's what makes it work. He's lost family, friends, and faith in the world, and he knows a peaceful ending isn't coming. He's not trying to save the world too. He's just trying to clean up a mess he helped create, no matter how messy it gets. Along the way, we see flashbacks to the fall of the heroes, the betrayal that shattered everything, and the moment where Clint almost gave up. But he didn't. And that stubbornness, that grit, is classic Hawkeye. The story of Old Man Hawkeye is grounded, raw, and deeply human. Clint Barton may not have powers, but in the Wastelands, he's one of the last people still trying to do the right thing, even if it's too late to make a difference. He's not the best shot anymore, and he knows it, but he is still willing to take one last aim. Kate Bishop. First introduced in Young Avengers 1 in 2005, Kate stepped into the role of Hawkeye, not as Clint Barton's sidekick, clone, or successor by default. Kate came from a wealthy Manhattan family, but chose to walk a radically different path. After surviving a traumatic incident where she was attacked in Central Park, Kate devoted herself to self-defense and training in combat and archery. When the original Avengers disbanded, she joined the Young Avengers and became the team's strategist, sharpshooter, and moral compass, despite having no superpowers. Inspired by Clint Barton, who had temporarily died at the time, Kate took up the bow and the name Hawkeye, because no one else was stepping up. And when Clint returned, he didn't reclaim it, he respected her enough to share it. Kate's version of Hawkeye is marked by incredible accuracy, on par with Clint himself, willing to go toe-to-toe with gods, assassins, and corrupt billionaires, even when outmatched, and she has a sense of grounded heroism, focusing on helping the people around her rather than chasing world-ending threats. She is starred in solo runs like Hawkeye in 2016, where she works as a private investigator in LA, solving crimes, exposing supervillain plots, and building her own legacy far from Clint's shadow. And like I mentioned, Kate isn't trying to be the next Clint Barton. She is Kate Bishop, and she's earned her place as one of Marvel's most iconic young heroes.
Dazzler. She wasn't created because Marvel wanted a disco superhero. She was created because Marvel struck a cross-promotion deal with Casablanca Records in 1979. The plan was Marvel would debut a superhero pop star and Casablanca would release her real-life album, and then she'd get her own movie starring a rising music icon. Dazzler was supposed to be the first superhero created simultaneously for comics, film, and pop charts. The entire concept started as a marketing stunt, not as a storytelling idea. At first, the character was modeled after the legendary Grace Jones, meaning Dazzler was originally envisioned as a futuristic, avant-garde, high-fashion superstar. Then the record label changed direction and decided she should resemble Bo Derek, who was one of Hollywood's biggest stars at the time. So Marvel redesigned her again, and this time as a blonde disco singer wearing roller skates. And these constant redesigns show how she wasn't meant to be a character with depth. She was meant to be a product. Even though the music deal was already starting to wobble, Marvel needed to move forward with their part of the plan. So Dazzler made her first appearance in X-Men 130. Her debut is still iconic, a disco singer who turns sound into light while the X-Men fight the Hellfire Club. Readers didn't know she was supposed to become a real-world pop star. They just saw a glamorous new mutant with a unique power set and attitude. Casablanca Records never delivered any music. The movie project died before filming began, and Marvel suddenly found themselves with a superhero designed to promote a soundtrack that didn't exist. But they had already printed Dazzler issue 1, and it sold more than 400,000 copies, a huge number at the time. So Marvel had a character created to sell an album without a record label pushing her. Marvel reworked Dazzler into a character with depth. Instead of being a multimedia stunt, she became a mutant balancing fame, discrimination, romance, and heroic responsibility. Her stories got surprisingly ambitious. She fought cosmic threats, Galactus traveled across dimensions, teamed up with Spider-Man and the X-Men, and at one point even faced Galactus. She became a symbol of being underestimated both in universe and in real life. Realistically, Dazzler should have vanished once the music deal failed. Instead, she craved out a unique place in Marvel Universe. She joined the X-Men, starred in multiple teams, and developed a loyal fanbase. What began as a corporate gimmick turned into a genuine, beloved character with decades of history. David Colchan. He exists because Marvel's timeline keeps moving forward. Steve Rogers didn't wake up recently anymore. In modern continuity, he'd been frozen for closer to 70 years, not 20. That gap matters. The world changed, wars changed, and America changed. So Marvel introduced David Colchan as a Captain America who lived in the modern era. He wasn't born in World War II. He grew up with 24 hours news cycles, terrorism, right away that made him feel different from Steve. Not better or worse, just shaped by a completely different world. His story starts in a very grounded place. As a child, he personally witnessed the 9/11 attacks, an event that deeply traumatized him and defined his sense of duty. Unlike Steve Rogers, whose motivation came from fighting fascism abroad, David's drive came from fear, loss, and a desire to protect his country from threats that felt close and personal. He tried to enlist in the US Army, but was rejected because he was physically weak and frail. Still, just like Steve, he refused to give up. His determination impressed his superiors. Eventually, David was given the opportunity to undergo a modern version of the super soldier process. It wasn't the same perfect serum that created Steve Rogers. It was experimental, rushed, and shaped by modern military needs. Enhanced and deployed, David served in Afghanistan and Iraq, becoming the government's Captain America long before Steve ever returned. This is what makes his story unique. David wasn't a symbol pulled from history. He was a symbol manufactured by modern warfare. When Steve Rogers was finally unfrozen, the two Captain Americas were sent on missions together, including a dangerous operation in Latveria against Dr. Doom. This partnership is where David's story really shines. Steve didn't treat him as a replacement or a mistake. Instead, he helped David confront his trauma and understand what Captain America is supposed to represent. Steve taught him that the shield doesn't stand for blind obedience to the government, but for freedom, compassion, and protecting everyone, not just Americans. Through Steve, David began questioning whether he was a hero or just a weapon. And during his final appearance, David was seriously injured. Marvel left his fate ambiguous, which feels intentional. David represents the cost of trying to recreate legends instead of learning from them. His arc is short, but a reminder that Captain America isn't just a uniform or a serum. And whether David survived or not, his existence added depth to the Captain America legacy and showed how messy, painful, and complicated heroism becomes in the modern world.
Rune King Thor. He is one of the most powerful versions of Thor ever depicted in Marvel Comics, a god-transcended fate, death, and the very concept of gods as we know them. This version of the Asgardian Avenger appears in Thor 1998 during the epic Ragnarok storyline. The story begins with the looming destruction of Asgard, Ragnarok, the end of the Norse gods. Thor has seen this cycle happen before. The gods live, die, and are reborn in an endless loop dictated by the cosmic tapestry known as the threads of fate, spun by the Norns. Realizing that even he is just a pawn in a pre-creation cycle, Thor begins to question the very nature of his existence. And in order to break the cycle and save his people, Thor embarks on a journey of enlightenment and transformation. He sacrifices his eye for wisdom, just like Odin once did, and then hangs himself from the world tree, Yggdrasil, for 9 days and nights, enduring immense suffering. Through this ordeal, Thor unlocks the powers of the runes, gaining infinite knowledge and cosmic awareness. When he emerges, he is Rune King Thor, a being far more than the god of thunder. He is now a living embodiment of divine force, wielding both raw power and omniscient insight. As Rune King Thor, he destroys those who sit above in shadow, mysterious godlike beings who feed on endless cycle of Ragnarok and control the fates of all gods. And these entities were thought to be beyond death, but Thor annihilates them, shattering the very foundation of the divine hierarchy. Thor then goes even further. He lets Ragnarok happen, but not as another cycle of rebirth. This time, he ends it completely. He allows the destruction of Asgard so that the gods can be freed from fate, breaking the wheel forever. And in doing so, he vanishes into a kind of cosmic slumber until the universe needs him again. So Rune King Thor is basically unstoppable. At this level, he could potentially stand toe-to-toe with cosmic entities like Galactus, Oblivion, or even the Living Tribunal. This version of Thor is a force of change, a mythbreaker, and a god who dared to defy destiny itself. Lonella Lafayette, aka Moon Girl. She is one of the youngest, most brilliant minds in the Marvel Universe, first appearing in Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur 1 in 2015. Lunilla is a 9-year-old child prodigy, whose intelligence exceeds that of some of the greatest minds in Marvel history, officially recognized as the smartest person on Earth. Lunilla grew up in New York City, where she constantly felt out of place due to her extraordinary intelligence. While other kids were playing, she was building high-tech gadgets, modifying robotics, and solving scientific problems that adults couldn't comprehend. And her intellect was often dismissed or misunderstood because of her age. And her story took a dramatic turn when she discovered a Cree-Omni-Wave projector, a device that opened a time portal, pulling Devil Dinosaur, a massive red T-Rex from the prehistoric era, into modern-day New York. Though an unusual pairing, Lunilla and Devil Dinosaur quickly became best friends, with the dinosaur serving as her protector while she navigated a world that often underestimated her. Her intelligence is not just theoretical, it's intuitive. She doesn't just learn, she instinctively understands science, engineering, and advanced technology in ways that even Reed Richards struggles to comprehend. She has created advanced technology, including AI assistants, enhanced armor, and reality-wrapping devices, using nothing but common materials. And in Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur issue 13, Reed Richards himself admitted that she might be smarter than him, making her the first confirmed person to surpass Reed's intellect. And when she discovered that she carried the human gene, she studied its effects and found ways to control her transformation before it even happened. So her intelligence is not just about knowledge, it's about problem solving and adaptation at an unprecedented level. She has worked alongside some heroes, and her inventions have helped save New York City and beyond. So unlike other intelligent characters who thrive on their intelligence, Moon Girl sometimes wishes she could just be a normal kid. And while she can build advanced technology, she lacks experience, emotional maturity, and battle instincts, which means she often has to rely on others, like Devil Dinosaur, for protection. But all that out of the way, Moon Girl is one of the smartest characters in Marvel, and she's only just getting started. And as she grows older, her potential becomes limitless. Elektra. First appearing in Daredevil 168 in 1981, she quickly became one of the most iconic assassins in comic book history. She operates in a gray area between justice and vengeance, often shifting between hero and anti-hero, depending on the situation. Elektra was born in Greece to a wealthy family, but tragedy struck when her mother was shot while pregnant and died shortly after giving birth to her. Her father, a powerful diplomat, sent her to the United States, where she eventually enrolled in Columbia University. It was there that she met Matt Murdock, and the two quickly fell in love. However, when her father was assassinated, Elektra abandoned her relationship with Matt and disappeared from his life. And this marked the beginning of her transformation into one of the world's deadliest assassins. So determined to gain control over her emotions and find her own path, Elektra trained under Stick, the same blind martial arts master who trained Daredevil. Stick recognized her incredible potential but warned her against the darkness growing inside her. And instead of following his teachings completely, Elektra became drawn to the Hand, and while she initially embraced their brutal ways, she later rebelled against them. Her abilities include master-level hand-to-hand combat, expert Psi wielder, peak human agility and reflexes, stealth and espionage, just to name a few. And her greatest enemy is herself. She often succumbs to her darker instincts, making her both a hero and a villain depending on the story. She has worked as a mercenary, an assassin for hire, and even an enforcer for the Hand. Yet she has also fought alongside Daredevil, Spider-Man, and Luke Cage, and her most notorious enemy is Bullseye, the assassin who killed her in one of the most shocking moments in comic book history. But comics being comics, she was resurrected by the Hand, reinforcing her mystical and dangerous connection to the organization. Recently in 2020, Elektra has taken on a new role. She became the new Daredevil after Matt was imprisoned, proving that despite her dark past, she is capable of heroism.
Old King Thor. Old King Thor is the version of Thor who's lived through gods, galaxies, and the end of time itself, and come out the other side, grizzled, missing an eye, and more powerful than ever. Introduced in Jason Aaron's Thor God of Thunder run, this is All-Father Thor, the ruler of Asgard in the far future, burdened with the scars of millennia and the weight of a universe that's falling apart. He's lived long past most of his friends and enemies, and by the time we meet him, he's basically a myth. One of the coolest things about Old King Thor is how much he mirrors Odin, the very god he used to rebel against. He's sitting on the throne now, carrying the responsibilities he once hated, and realizing that ruling isn't just about out swinging a hammer and yelling at frost giants. He's wiser, but also heavier. You can feel it in the way he talks, in the way he fights. They're strange, yes, but also a deep cosmic exhaustion. This Thor has seen worlds die, gods vanish, and stars go cold, and he is still standing. He's got a white beard like a Viking war god, one glowing eye, and a mechanical arm made from the destroyer armor, because at some point he lost his real one in battle. He still wields Mjolnir, but sometimes also carries other weapons, including the all-black Necrosword. When he is forced to face even darker threats, he's battled Gore the God Butcher at the end of time, fought alongside and against younger versions of himself. He fought Wolverine, Doctor Doom, and even faced the reincarnation of Loki in apocalyptic form. But he is lonely. Most of the gods are gone. Midgard is a barren wasteland. His family is either dead or missing, and he talks to dragons and cosmic beasts just to have someone to converse with. And when Galactus shows up, trying to devour the last remnants of Earth, Galactus won when he had enough, but old King Thor did manage to defeat a slightly fed Galactus after wielding the Necrosword. Magneto. He started as the enemy of the X-Men, but deep down, Magneto has always believed he was doing the right thing for mutant kind. He's a Holocaust survivor. He has seen real genocide, real cruelty, real human evil. So in his mind, he refuses to ever let mutants experience the same pain. This makes him a complicated character, because he doesn't hurt people just for chaos or power. He hurts people when he feels he has to protect humans from another tragedy. And that blurs the line between hero and villain over and over again. One of Magneto's turning points was when he faced Kitty Pryde. He almost killed her by accident. That moment completely changed him. It made him realize that even mutants can suffer because of his actions, and this shook him deeply. He saw himself turning into the monster he hated. This event pushed him away from pure evil and more toward a complicated protector role. So even though his methods were brutal sometimes, his heart started shifting toward protection, survival, and responsibility instead. Eventually, Magneto actually surrendered himself. He gave himself up, which is something true villains don't do. He promised Xavier he would take care of the next generation. He became a mentor, a teacher. He became the leader of the New Mutants. This is something no one expected from a so-called villain. But this is how Magneto works. He constantly moves between extremes, but his core intention is always the same: protect humans at all costs, even if the world hates him for it. Writers always kept Magneto floating between sides. Some years he's a villain, some years he's a full X-Man, some years he's the unstoppable enemy again. But every single time, the reason behind his choices stay the same: fear of mutant extinction. And that fear never leaves him. That trauma never leaves him. It defines him. So even if his actions are destructive, he believes humanity will destroy mutants first if he doesn't take action. And that makes his morality complicated, unstable, and emotional. The Krakoa era is the best example of this balance. When mutants created their own nation, Magneto wasn't the villain. He wasn't the one trying to destroy the world. He became a founder of mutant civilization. He built Krakoa as a home, a paradise, a nation where mutants finally ruled themselves. In Krakoa, we saw the purest version of Magneto, someone who just wants peace, but refuses to trust that peace will last without strength. He became a symbol of mutant pride, mutant strength, and mutant survival, not mutant violence. So when you look at Magneto's full history, you realize he was never simply a villain. He was a survivor trying to prevent history from repeating itself. He wanted safety. He wanted power to defend the powerless. He wanted respect for a race that the world constantly tried to eliminate. He can be the enemy, he can be the hero, he can be both at the same time. But at his core, Magneto was always that man who believed mutants deserved to live without fear, and he would do anything, absolutely anything, to make that happen. Nate Gray, aka X-Man. Born in the alternate Age of Apocalypse timeline, Nate was genetically engineered by Mr. Sinister using the DNA of Cyclops and Jean Grey. The goal was simple: create the ultimate mutant weapon. As a result, Nate emerged as an Omega-level psionic, possessing immense telepathic and telekinetic power that rivals the greatest psychic beings in the Marvel Universe. He can read and influence millions of minds simultaneously, create complex illusions, erase memories from entire populations, and mentally control even extremely powerful mutants. He can also manipulate matter down to the molecular or subatomic level, generate nearly indestructible force fields, fly at extreme speeds, and unleash devastating concussive blasts capable of destroying cities. At times, his powers have been so immense that characters like Moira McTaggart suggested his psionic strength could rival Dark Phoenix-level Jean Grey. Beyond standard psychic abilities, Nate eventually evolved into something far more unusual, and that's a living psionic entity. After dissolving his physical body into pure psychic energy, his consciousness continued to exist on the astral plane, allowing him to rebuild his body at will or possess other hosts. From this state, he can absorb psionic energy, manifest psychic weapons and armor, manipulate space and matter, teleport across dimensions, and even warp reality itself. In one storyline, Nate used his powers to create an entire alternate reality known as the Age of X-Men, reshaping history and memories to build a mutant utopia sustained entirely by his psychic will. Because of these feats, Nate Grey has often been described as a near omnipotent being, sometimes compared to cosmic forces in power, though his power has fluctuated over time, sometimes burned out or temporarily limited. It repeatedly returns stronger than before, cementing Nate Grey as one of the most dangerous and godlike mutants in the Marvel multiverse.
Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat. First appearing in The Amazing Spider-Man 194 in 1979, she is often compared to DC's Catwoman, but she has carved out her own unique identity in the Marvel Universe. As a master thief with luck-based powers, she constantly walks the line between hero and criminal, often aligning herself with Spider-Man while pursuing her own selfish or sometimes noble goals. Felicia was born into a life of wealth and privilege, but beneath the surface, her world was anything but stable. Her father, Walter Hardy, was one of the most infamous cat burglars in the world. Felicia idolized him, but when he was arrested and sent to prison, her life took a dark turn. Determined to follow in his footsteps, she trained in acrobatics, martial arts, and stealth, becoming an expert thief. However, unlike her father, Felicia wasn't just interested in crime, she sought revenge against those who had wronged her family. Her first major heist brought her into conflict with Spider-Man, but instead of being enemies, they developed an intense and complicated relationship. Unlike Peter's other love interests, Felicia was drawn to Spider-Man, not Peter Parker, meaning she loved the mask, not the man beneath it. And this led to tension and heartbreak, as Peter longed for something deeper. But despite this, she remains one of Spider-Man's most iconic romantic partners. Originally, Black Cat relied solely on her stealth, agility, and combat skills, but later she was enhanced with bad luck powers, thanks to an enhancement by Kingpin's scientists. She can subconsciously affect probability, making bad things happen to her enemies. For example, guns jamming, opponent tripping, structures collapsing, making her a literal walking disaster for her enemies. And like I mentioned, she has worked alongside Spider-Man, also Daredevil, and even the Avengers. However, she has also led her own crime syndicate, clashed with Kingpin, and even taken over parts of New York's underworld. So whether she is stealing priceless artifacts, helping Spider-Man save the city, or running her own underground empire, Black Cat remains one of Marvel's most mysterious, captivating, and unpredictable characters.
Miss Marvel becomes Captain Marvel. For decades, Carol Danvers was one of Marvel's most powerful heroes, operating under a borrowed legacy. But in Avengers Spider-Man 9, she first appeared as Captain Marvel, before getting her own series Captain Marvel in 2012. Carol Danvers' history is complex, and her transformation from Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel is even more complex. Carol began her career as an Air Force pilot and intelligence officer, and later became Miss Marvel after being caught in a Kree explosion involving the original Captain Marvel, Mar-Vell. This event infused her with Kree DNA, granting her powers of flight, super strength, energy projection, and durability. For years, she fought under the name Miss Marvel, a name that kept her in orbit of male legacy heroes, especially Mar-Vell, who died in the original Death of Captain Marvel graphic novel in 1982. And despite being one of the most powerful heroes on the planet, Carol often found herself sidelined or defined by others, whether it was the X-Men, the Avengers, or comparisons to male counterparts. But come 2012, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, encouraged her to take on the Captain Marvel title. It wasn't just approval, it was recognition. Carol had long outgrown the Miss Marvel mantle. She had earned the right to stand on her own, to lead, and to represent the best of what superheroes could be. Her new costume, designed by Jamie McKelvey, was a sleek, military-inspired suit with a bold red, blue, and gold color scheme and a starburst emblem across her chest. It embodied both Air Force discipline and her cosmic power. And with this new identity, Carol's stories expanded to match her potential. She became a cosmic protector, leading intergalactic missions, defending Earth from alien invasions, and eventually becoming the leader of Alpha Flight, Earth's space defense initiative. She battled with addiction and memory loss, and survived identity theft, literally during the Rogue incident. And she's not flawless. She makes hard decisions, and sometimes controversial ones. Civil War II, she still leads because she must, because others look to her when things go wrong, and because she never backs down from doing what's right, even when it costs her. And her ascension also opened the door for Kamala Khan to step into the Miss Marvel role. Kamala Khan. She is the modern Miss Marvel, and she was introduced in Captain Marvel 14 in 2013, then starring in her own series Miss Marvel in 2014. Kamala became Marvel's first Muslim American superhero to headline her own comic, and quickly rose to become one of its most beloved new icons. She's a teenage girl from Jersey City. She's a proud geek, gamer, and Avengers superfan, especially of Carol Danvers, the former Miss Marvel turned Captain Marvel. Kamala's life changes when she is exposed to the Terrigen Mist, activating her inhuman genes. She discovers she has shape-shifting abilities, most notably Ambiguity, allowing her to stretch, grow, or shrink parts of her body at will. So alongside her healing factor and enhanced strength, she becomes a surprisingly versatile and creative fighter. After taking up the mantle of Miss Marvel, in honor of her hero Carol Danvers, she dedicates herself to protecting her community. She doesn't start off fighting world-ending threats. She protects neighborhoods, schools, and the people around her, learning as she goes. And her battles aren't just with supervillains, but with cultural expectations, family dynamics, and self-doubt. As Miss Marvel, Kamala helped form the Champions, and she never tried to be Carol Danvers 2.0. She became Kamala Khan, a hero who redefined what it means to wear the Miss Marvel name. So from comics to animation to her own live-action Disney Plus series, Kamala has proven that she is a great successor, even though they changed her power in the MCU. I'll never forgive you, Disney. Sam Wilson, Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. Introduced in Invincible Iron Man, Volume 2, Issue 7 in 2016, Riri is a 15-year-old engineering prodigy from Chicago. She grows up in a tough neighborhood, but she's no ordinary teen. She is a certified genius with a passion for invention, and she earns a scholarship to MIT and begins secretly reverse engineering one of Tony Stark's Iron Man suits, using scrap parts and brilliance alone. When campus security tries to shut her down, she dons the armor and takes flight, literally. And that moment doesn't just mark the birth of a new hero, it catches the attention of Tony Stark himself. After Tony falls into a coma during Civil War II, an AI copy of his consciousness begins mentoring Riri, offering guidance but never control. And that's important. Riri Williams doesn't become Iron Man, she becomes Ironheart. A new name, a new suit, and a new identity built around her own mission, not Tony's. Unlike Stark, Riri doesn't come from privilege or fame. Her drive comes from loss. After witnessing her stepfather and best friend die in a shooting, she's fueled not just by brilliance, but by a desire to protect the people the world forgets. So her journey is about proving she can make a difference, no matter the odds. As Ironheart, she brings advanced armor of her own design, blending Stark tech with her own innovations, incredible intellect, even by Marvel standards. She's often compared to Shuri and even Valeria Richards, so she's walking her own path. She fights villains, navigates grief, she joined teams like the Champions, worked with S.H.I.E.L.D., and even built a version of her AI based on herself, rather than relying on Tony.
Spider-Gwen. She came from a single experimental issue in Edge of Spider-Verse in 2014. Writer J.C. Latour and artist Robbie Rodriguez were asked to create an alternate Spider-Man, and they pitched something simple but genius. What if Gwen Stacy got the spider bite instead of Peter Parker? It was supposed to be a one-and-done story, nothing more than a fun twist for the Spider-Verse event. Marvel had no intention of turning her into a recurring character, and because she wasn't meant to be long-term, the team went wild and built a distinct world just for her. Earth 65 had Gwen as a drummer in a punk band called the Mary Janes, Captain George Stacy as her father and biggest moral anchor, Peter Parker becoming the Lizard and tragically dying, Matt Murdock as a villain. The creative team was free to experiment, and that freedom gave Gwen a vibe no other spider hero had. Gwen's white hooded suit with pink and teal accents became an instant classic. Bold, modern, and completely different from every other Spider-Man outfit. Cosplayers jumped on it immediately, fan artists exploded with enthusiasm, and within hours of the issue dropping, social media was flooded with sketches, edits, and redesigns. Her costume alone practically guaranteed she wouldn't stay a one-off character. It was too stylish to ignore. Marvel expected Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2 to be a fun bonus story, and fans turned it into a movement. Spider-Gwen trended worldwide. The issue sold out instantly, and people begged Marvel for more. Within months, Marvel launched Spider-Gwen issue 1, giving Gwen her own ongoing comic on Earth 65. Suddenly, the What If Gwen Stacy Didn't Die experiment became a flagship Spider title with a massive fanbase, especially among younger readers and female fans looking for a fresh kind of Spider hero. Her series wasn't just another Spider-Man remix. It stood out because it blended punk rock aesthetics, vibrant neon worlds, emotional storytelling about guilt, identity, and expectations, a unique supporting cast, and a mix of dark themes
dreams and rebellious energy. She wasn't trying to replace Peter, she was craving her own lane, dealing with the fallout of Peter's death and struggling under the weight of being a hero while being hunted by her own police force, including her dad. The turning point was of course Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in 2018, where she became a central character and instantly one of the film's breakout stars, and that movie made her global. Today Spider-Gwen is everywhere. She's a cosplay staple, a massive merch seller, a key member of Spider-Verse, and a hero with multiple solo titles and one of the most successful new Marvel characters in decades. She started as a happy accident, a one-issue experiment, and ended up one of Marvel's most recognizable spider heroes. Hulk 2099. He isn't Bruce Banner, he is John Eisenhart, a publicity agent in a dystopian corporate-controlled future. Instead of working on gamma research, John's job is pitching movies and exploiting trends. That already tells you how different this Hulk is. His transformation happens when he tries to exploit a group of gamma-worshipping rebels for a film deal, only for things to go horribly wrong. The accident that follows rewrites him into a new Hulk, not a tragic scientist, but a man whose greed literally turns him into a monster. Hulk 2099 doesn't look anything like the green giant we know. He's massive, spiky, almost reptilian, with jagged teeth, razor claws, and glowing red eyes. He's less angry giant and more prehistoric nightmare creature dropped into a cyberpunk city. And unlike Banner's Hulk, who is usually childlike or blunt, this Hulk is feral. He has animal instincts, hunts his enemies, and fights with raw brutality. There's no smash because I'm angry vibe here. He's a predatory force unleashed on a world full of criminals, corpus, and killers. One of the coolest twists with this Hulk is that John eventually stops fearing the Hulk and starts leaning into it. Instead of trying to cure himself, he uses the Hulk form to get revenge, take down corporate threats, and acts on impulses he never dared to follow as a human. In many ways, Hulk 2099 becomes the pure version of himself, unfiltered, unrestrained, and done pretending to be a decent company man. Hulk ends up battling everything from cyborg enforcers to cults to corporate executives. His stories feel less like traditional superhero arcs and more like a blend of urban horror and corporate revenge fantasy. Unlike Bruce, whose entire character revolves around trying to control or suppress the Hulk, John doesn't struggle with rage, he struggles with guilt. The accident that created this Hulk killed people he was trying to exploit. Every time he transforms, it's a reminder of the cost of his selfishness. Instead of Hulk smash, his story is more about Hulk atone. He uses the monster to try to make up for the harm he caused, even though he knows he can't ever fully redeem himself. Yes, he is not as famous as Spider-Man 2099 or Doom 2099, but he is one of the most interesting reinterpretations. He captures the tone of the era, violent, weird, experimental, and pushes the whole concept into full-on horror territory. His part monster movie, part cyberpunk anti-hero, and part redemption arc wrapped in claws and spikes. Even though his series didn't last long, Hulk 2099 remains one of the boldest future versions Marvel ever tried. Marvel. He is one of those Marvel characters whose legacy is way bigger than his actual time on the page. He was a Kree warrior sent to Earth as part of a military operation, but the more time he spent among humans, the more he began to admire them. Instead of acting as a spy, he became a protector, taking the name Captain Marvel and becoming one of the earliest cosmic heroes in Marvel's history. His bravery, calm confidence, and genuine compassion made him a natural ally to the Avengers, and a huge inspiration to Carol Danvers, who would later take up the mantle herself. As a hero, Marvel fought everything from alien invasions to cosmic tyrants, but his greatest rivalry was with Thanos. Their battles helped cement Thanos as a major villain long before he became the Mad Titan we know today. Marvel constantly sided with Earth, even when his own people, the Kree Empire, expected him to return to their ranks. His choice to fight for humanity put him at odds with the Kree leadership, but earned him a place among Earth's greatest champions. Tragically, his death wasn't some huge cosmic battle or universe-ending explosion, it was something painfully human. During a fight with the villain Nitro, Marvel was exposed to a massive dose of nerve gas. The radiation from the explosion slowly caused cancer, and back then, Marvel didn't treat this like comic book cancer. It wasn't something that could be reversed with magic or cosmic power. The Kree even tried to offer him a cure, but only if he betrayed Earth. Staying true to who he was, Marvel refused. Surrounded by friends, loved ones, and nearly every major hero, he passed away peacefully in the legendary Death of Captain Marvel graphic novel, still one of Marvel's most emotional stories. Since then, Marvel has resurrected Marvel a few times, but never properly. Every return was twisted. Illusions, clones, or undead versions controlled against their will. The closest he came to a real comeback was during a Phoenix-related event where he briefly regained his mind and sacrificed himself again to save others. But the real Captain Marvel, the noble Kree hero who chose humanity over empire, has never truly returned, making him one of Marvel's few deaths that remains permanent. Iceman. he might be one of the greatest late bloomers Marvel ever created. In the early days, he was literally just a dude covered in snow. Like Frosty the Snowman joined the X-Men by accident. He threw snowballs, made little ice slides, and cracked jokes, while the team's heavy hitters did the real damage. Bobby Drake was fun, charming, sarcastic, but nobody saw him as dangerous. He was the kid brother of the X-Men, useful but never the one you feared. Then everything changed when writers actually took a deeper look at his ability. Iceman wasn't just summoning cold, he was manipulating moisture on a molecular level, oceans, clouds, blood, atmospheric humidity, all of it obeyed him. His power wasn't about making snow, it was about controlling water in any state. That's when he stopped being the comic relief and started becoming an Omega level monster without even evolving physically. As his confidence and experience grew, so did the insanity of his feats. Bobby learned to ice clone himself across entire cities, create giant kaiju-sized bodies, rebuild himself after being shattered, and spread his consciousness through water vapor. If you destroy his body, he'll just reform from the nearest snowflake or puddle. Heroes like Wolverine, Hulk, and Magneto have openly admitted the Iceman is one of the worst people to make angry, because you can't really kill water. Then came the moment fans went, oh, he's a god now. Iceman learned to freeze anything instantly. Air, magic, cosmic energy, even entire armies before they could blink. He can lower temperatures to absolute zero, stop molecules in place, and sap heat from people until they collapse. I mean, you're not fighting a man anymore. You are fighting physics itself. If water exists, Bobby exists. If heat exists, he can take it. If you have blood, he can control what's inside you. Suddenly, the friendly goofball could end a continent. Even more wild, like I mentioned, Bobby can multiply himself. Not just duplicates for distraction, but full independent ice drones, each able to think, fight, and act on its own. Villains who once laughed at him reevaluated their life choices, because Iceman wasn't the joke anymore. He was the apocalypse wearing skates. Now Iceman stands among the deadliest beings in the Marvel Universe. No cosmic upgrade, no alien boost, just a hero who finally unlocked the potential he always had. He went from Snowball Boy to someone who could, realistically, freeze the world if he woke up in a bad mood. Bobby Drake was built as a god from day one. It just took Marvel decades to realize it. Goliath. Bill Foster is one of those Marvel characters who never got the spotlight he deserved. He started out as a brilliant scientist, working alongside Hank Pym, helping him refine and understand the famous Pym particles. Over time, Bill figured out how to use the particles himself, letting him grow to massive sizes just like Pym. With that, he stepped into the superhero world under the name Black Goliath, later shortened to simply Goliath, hoping to be more than just a scientist behind the scenes. Once he embraced the hero life, Bill Foster became a dependable presence in the Marvel Universe. He joined teams like the Champions and the Defenders, and he even teamed up with the Thing from the Fantastic Four on several adventures. Bill wasn't the flashiest hero, but he was strong, level-headed, and always willing to put himself in danger to protect others. He represented that everyday hero vibe, someone who earned his place through hard work, not destiny or cosmic powers. Sadly, Bill Foster's greatest moment of recognition came from tragedy. During the Civil War storyline, when superheroes were split over the Superhuman Registration Act, Bill sided with Captain America and the anti-registration team. In what became one of the event's darkest moments, Tony Stark's side deployed a clone cyborg version of Thor named Ragnarok. No one knew how unstable the clone was, and when tensions flared, Ragnarok attacked with real killing intent. Bill Foster was struck by a lightning blast meant to intimidate the rebels, and died instantly. His massive body had to be buried in a special, oversized grave, becoming a symbol of how far the conflict had spiraled out of control. His death didn't just fade into the background. His nephew Tom Foster was devastated and furious, seeing Bill's killing as proof that the heroes he once admired had lost their way. Tom eventually took on the Goliath name himself, driven at first by vengeance, but later by the desire to honor his uncle properly. Hawkeye becomes Goliath. When you think of Clint Barton, the first thing that comes to mind is probably Hawkeye, the bow-wielding Avenger with perfect aim. But there was a time when Clint hung up his quiver and arrows and stepped into the shoes of an entirely different kind of hero, Goliath. Clint's time as Goliath happened during the Silver Age of Marvel, specifically in Avengers 63 in 1969. At that time, Hank Pym, the original Goliath, and also Ant-Man, Giant Man, and Yellow Jacket depending on the day, had temporarily stepped away from superhero work. His size-changing Pym particles were left behind, and Clint, never one to back away from a challenge, volunteered to use them. Clint was tired of being seen as just the guy with the bow, among a team of super soldiers, gods, and armored geniuses. He wanted to contribute on a bigger scale, literally. By using Hank Pym's serum, Clint became the new Goliath, able to grow to heights of 25 feet or more, with all the superhuman strength and durability that came with it. As Goliath, Clint took on a more traditional superhero look. He fought enemies like the Red Guardian, Whirlwind, and Egghead's Masters of Evil, using his towering form to dominate the battlefield. But while he had the size and strength, his heart remained pure Hawkeye, defiant, reckless, and always willing to mount off mid-fight. And this transformation wasn't permanent, of course. Clint would eventually go back to being Hawkeye, realizing that while the Goliath powers were impressive, they didn't define him. He was never meant to be a tank. He was a strategist, a rebel, and most importantly, a long-range fighter. Goliath was an experiment, a chance to stretch himself, but it only reinforced how important it was for him to stay true to his roots. Still, Clint's time as Goliath was fascinating. Every hero tries to grow, sometimes literally, to prove their worth. And for a time, Hawkeye wasn't just the guy with the bow, he was the biggest guy in the room. Jean Grey. She is one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel Universe and a founding member of the X-Men. Her mutant powers first appeared when she was a child after witnessing the traumatic death of her best friend. The shock triggered a massive psychic outburst that revealed her abilities as both a telepath and a telekinetic, allowing her to read minds, communicate mentally, and manipulate objects with her thoughts. As she grew older and joined Professor X's first class of X-Men, Jean quickly became one of the team's most powerful members. Her telepathy is considered Omega level, meaning her psychic potential has no known upper limit. Jean can communicate across enormous distances, manipulate memories, control thoughts, and even battle other powerful psychics on the astral plane. Combined with her telekinesis, she can move massive objects, generate force fields, and unleash devastating psychic attacks. Jean's powers reached its most legendary level when she bonded with the cosmic entity known as the Phoenix Force. As the Phoenix, and later the Dark Phoenix, Jean gained nearly limitless cosmic power, capable of manipulating matter and energy on a massive scale. Even without the Phoenix, however, Jean remains one of the most powerful mutants in existence, with psychic abilities strong enough to challenge cosmic beings and shape events across the entire Marvel Universe. Forge. For most of his life, Forge was already considered one of the greatest inventors in the Marvel Universe, capable of competing intellectually with minds like Tony Stark. He intuitively designed and built solutions to complex problems, often creating advanced technology that others could never imagine. This challenge made him an essential figure during the Krakoan era, where he helped develop the revolutionary biotechnology that powers the island nation of Krakoa. His abilities extend beyond simple engineering, as his mind instinctively identifies the exact tools, machines, or systems needed to solve any challenge, allowing him to invent incredibly advanced devices almost effortlessly. Because of this, he has built everything from experimental weapons and cybernetic systems to sophisticated biotech infrastructure that helped transform Krakoa into a thriving mutant civilization. In addition to his technological genius, Forge also has training as a Native American shaman, giving him knowledge of mystical practices and magic, skills he rarely uses but still possesses. Eventually, Forge took his abilities even further by using his own power to evolve himself into an Omega level mutant, greatly expanding his capacity for invention and strategic foresight. With this upgrade, he can perceive potential global threats and design precise technological solutions to stop them before they spiral into chaos. As a result, Forge has become one of the most valuable minds in mutant society and has even stepped into leadership roles such as leading X-Force.
Old Man Logan. Set in a bleak post-apocalyptic future where villains have won and America is carved up like a mafia turf war, Logan is older, quieter, and haunted. He is not the snarling berserker we are used to. Well, not at first. Something broke inside of him, and he swore off violence entirely. No more claws, no more fighting. He's just trying to live a quiet life on a farm with his wife and kids, but of course the world doesn't let him. You don't get the full story up front, but little by little, you learn that Logan killed the X-Men. Mysterio tricked him into thinking the mansion was under attack, and he slaughtered his own teammates with his bare hand. That kind of guilt doesn't just go away, it eats at him. So when he says he's done with being Wolverine, he means it. But in a world run by the Hulk's inbred, hillbilly family and Red Skull wearing Captain America's costume, that kind of pacifism can't last forever. Logan's older and rougher around the edges. His healing factor has slowed down, his beard is white, his body aches more, and his eyes are heavier. But even after all that, he is still Wolverine. That same fire still burns, buried deep under the guilt and grief. When he finally snaps, as in when the Hulk gang pushes him too far, he becomes an unstoppable force. He becomes vengeance. Pure, brutal, and long overdue. Old Man Logan in this story is not fighting to save the world. He's fighting because he can't live with himself otherwise. Every step he takes is fueled by pain, and yet there's still this faint ember of decency inside him. That's why his story hits so hard. It's about redemption through survival, through doing one last right thing, in a world gone wrong. Eventually, Logan ends up pulled into the main Marvel timeline, still old and damaged, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He knows this world isn't his, but maybe he can stop it from becoming the hellscape he left behind. So even with shaky hands and fading strength, he sharpens his claws again, because someone has to. Old Man Phoenix.
He is basically Logan cranked up to cosmic levels, claws, healing factor, and now a universe-burning Firebird inside him. This version of Wolverine comes from a far-flung future where King Loki wiped out humanity just to make Thor suffer. Logan actually died during this apocalypse, but the Phoenix Force chose him as its new host and brought him back to life. From there, he spent countless eons wandering the dying universe, snuffing out celestial bodies one by one to ease the cosmos toward its inevitable end. Logan basically becomes a one-man funeral for the universe. Old Man Phoenix is fully aware, older, and a little more philosophical. He still has Logan's classic gruff personality, but he's been alive for billions of years, carrying the weight of watching everything he's ever cared about fade away. When we meet him, he's scarred by time but still fighting, still moving forward. And that combination of cosmic scale and Logan's street-level attitude is what makes this version so compelling. It's the same guy who used to drink at the bar with Nightcrawler, now casually blowing up stars. At one point, Logan crosses paths with a future Loki who has caused endless suffering across the galaxy while chasing the Infinity Stones. After seeing enough death, Logan decides to step in, using his Phoenix powers to go back in time and try to stop Loki's plan. This kicks off a series of time-hopping adventures where he battles Ultron drones, steals the Space Stone out from under S.H.I.E.L.D.'s nose, and even stalks his old friends from the shadows just to see them one last time. It's a perfect mix of nostalgic and bittersweet. This is Wolverine after all. He can't just sit quietly when the universe is in danger. The biggest clash comes when Logan reunites with Thor in the future. Thor is trying to bring life back to Earth, but Logan actually attacks him for it, saying something worse. Dr. Doom is waiting out there and will come for Earth if it's repopulated. The two old friends throw down in an insane battle, but the Phoenix refuses to let Logan kill Thor because of its own ancient connection to him. Eventually, Logan agrees to fight alongside Thor against Doom, setting up one of the most insane final battles in Marvel history. Logan goes out in true Wolverine fashion, painfully, violently, but with purpose. Doom literally burns him down to a skeleton with hellfire, but Logan resurrects himself through the Phoenix Force, then sacrifices his own life and power to transform the Phoenix into Mjolnir. This gives Thor the ultimate weapon he needs to finish Doom for good. It's a heroic, almost mythic death for Logan, and one of the most badass exits Marvel has ever given him. But of course, you can't keep Wolverine down forever. The Phoenix resurrects him again, and he eventually joins the Goddesses of Thunder and fights even bigger multiversal threats, including Doom, the Living Planet. After helping contain the power of the first Firmament alongside two other Phoenix hosts, Logan finally gets to rest. He literally retires and becomes a gardener at the end of time. After all the blood, fire, and tragedy, it's strangely beautiful to see Wolverine finally find some peace. Spider-Man. Peter Parker in Spider-Man life story is what happens when you let time do its thing. No reboots, no resets, just a kid who gets bit by a spider in 1962 and grows old like everyone else. But unlike everyone else, Peter lives his entire life under the crushing weight of with great power comes great responsibility. That line doesn't fade with time. It follows him, haunts him, and reshapes every painful, complicated decision he makes. He starts out the way you'd expect, young, idealistic, and overwhelmed. He fights crime, loses Uncle Ben, balances school and web slinging, and tries to do it all with a sense of humor. But reality hits fast and hard. Gwen Stacy dies, and Peter never really recovers. His relationship with Mary Jane is filled with love but also distance, made worse when the symbiote nearly turns him into something unrecognizable. The trauma and guilt push MJ to leave with their kids, and Peter buries himself in work, first as a scientist, then as the CEO of Park Industries, but none of it fills the void. He's successful, sure, but hollow. As the years roll on, the world gets darker, heroes fall, villains rise, and Peter becomes more of a ghost in his own life. His marriage crumbles, his friendship fall apart, and he becomes entangled in secrets and clone conspiracies that nearly break him. Even when he uncovers that he's the original Peter, not the clone like Otto claimed, it's too late. He gives up the company, tries to make peace with MJ, and heads back to Portland to live quietly. But peace isn't something Spider-Man ever really gets. He gets pulled back into the chaos, back into the war, because when everything's falling apart, people still expect him to hold it all together. And by the time he's an old man, Peter's not swinging through skyscrapers anymore. He is leading a resistance against Dr. Doom's global regime. Most of the heroes are dead or in hiding, but Peter is still fighting, even with grey hair, slower reflexes, and more scars than he can count. His final mission, alongside Miles Morales, is a desperate gambit to shut down Doom's control over the planet. It's brutal, personal, and ends in space, with Peter webbing together a collapsing station with everything he has left, including the last shreds of a reformed symbiote. And as everything falls apart, his final thoughts are of MJ. Old Peter Parker in life story is heroic, but not in the shiny comic book sense. He's messy, flawed, and human. He makes bad choices, he makes good choices, he hurts people, he gets hurt, but through all of it, he never stops trying. Even as the world forgets what heroism looks like, Peter quietly keeps carrying the weight, because he knows deep in his bones that no one else will, and that might be the truest version of Spider-Man ever written. The Black Vortex form of Kitty Pryde. The Black Vortex is basically Marvel's ultimate cosmic upgrade machine. You look into it, submit to it, and it transforms you into the most powerful version of yourself. During the Black Vortex crossover, a bunch of heroes and villains debate whether to use it because it's permanent and can completely change who you are. Kitty Pryde, the X-Men's resident phasing genius, ends up making the call to submit, and the result is one of the most jaw-dropping power-ups in X-Men history. Before the Black Vortex, Kitty's power was already pretty impressive. She can phase through walls, become intangible, and even take other people with her. But when she accepts the Black Vortex's gift, she levels up in a way that makes even the cosmic big shots do a double take. Her phasing becomes so advanced that she can phase entire planets. Yup, not a wall, not a building, a planet. She literally phases a whole world to save it from being destroyed. Her new form is visually stunning too. The Black Vortex gives her the sleek, glowing cosmic look with starry skin and flowing energy patterns. She's no longer just a mutant hero, she's a full-on cosmic entity. And what's cool is that Kitty doesn't lose herself in the process. The Vortex offers power at a cost. It can corrupt, but Kitty stays true to who she is. Instead of becoming some galactic conqueror, she uses her new abilities to protect people on a universal scale. One of the most iconic moments is when she faces a planet to avoid it colliding with another one. The sheer scale of that feat can be overstated. It puts her in the same league as characters like Silver Surfer or Captain Marvel when it comes to cosmic heroics. This was the first time Kitty went from brilliant, scrappy X-Men member to a being who could casually manipulate matter on a universal scale. This transformation also shows Kitty's growth as a character. She started as the youngest member of the X-Men, often overshadowed by the likes of Wolverine, Storm, and Cyclops, and by the time of the Black Vortex event, she's a leader, a powerhouse, and willing to take risks that others wouldn't. Her choice to submit to the Vortex wasn't just about power, it was about doing what no one else could do to save countless lives. And even after the event, Kitty keeps the cosmic upgrade for a while, which opens the door for more ambitious storytelling. It's not permanent forever, but for a brief period, we got to see what happens when one of Marvel's most clever and compassionate heroes is given near limitless power. And honestly, it ruled. Norman Osborn. He is probably the last person anyone ever expected to even touch the idea of being a hero. This man is literally Spider-Man's ultimate nightmare. The Green Goblin who ruined Peter's life again and again, from mental torture to emotional manipulation, to physical destruction, to leaving scars that never go away. He wasn't just a villain, he was the definition of personal evil in Peter's world. So seeing Norman actually try to change later in Marvel is one of the most shocking redemption arcs Marvel ever attempted. For decades he was ego, cruelty, power, and madness wrapped into one. He enjoyed winning through terror. He built his entire identity on being better than everyone else and proving he deserved control. So the idea of him becoming something close to heroic feels unbelievable, and that's exactly why his transformation hits harder than almost any other villain on this list. After the events of Absolute Carnage, Marvel did something very different with Norman. When the Sin Eater literally purified him, removing his evil, Norman was left with something he had never truly experienced before: guilt, regret, remorse. And instead of doubling back into madness, Norman took that guilt and tried to genuinely fix something in his life. He wanted redemption, he wanted peace, he wanted to make things right with Peter, he wanted to reconnect with his family. It was the first time in decades Norman Osborn wasn't driven by obsession, he was driven by shame. It was slow, awkward, messy. He still struggled with who he used to be, he still lived with the weight of every horrible thing he ever did, but instead of running from that weight, he tried to take responsibility for it. Norman Osborn was not just seeking redemption, in story terms, he was emotionally confronting everything he became. Eventually, Norman even took up a new heroic identity, the Gold Goblin. Same iconic style, same goblin technology, same visual symbolism, but used for something good for once. He wanted the world to see him differently. He wanted to be different. He wanted to protect instead of terrorize. The Green Goblin persona that once represented chaos and pain became a symbol of his attempt to heal and fix what he once destroyed. Him becoming a hero doesn't erase his past will always be there. But Marvel showed that even the symbol of Spider-Man's greatest trauma could still try to change. He doesn't become a clean, flawless savior, but he becomes someone who wants to earn forgiveness, step by step, action by action. Deadpool. Wade originally began as a villain. He showed up as an antagonist fighting against Cable and the New Mutants. He wasn't saving people, he wasn't cracking jokes to lighten the world, he was a problem.
He was a threat. He was a mercenary with zero moral direction. And he was completely fine being on the wrong side as long as it paid well or caused chaos. Over time, Deadpool started shifting more into the mercenary for hire type of character, which put him in a weird moral place where sometimes he helped heroes and sometimes he fought against them. He wasn't guided by justice, he wasn't guided by ideology, he was guided by money, survival, and whatever insane mood he was in that day. But this is exactly what made him such a unique Marvel figure, because he could bounce between roles constantly and never be predictable. And slowly, without even realizing it, Deadpool began leaning toward doing the right thing more often than doing the wrong thing. He eventually began forming friendships and bonds with actual heroes, especially characters like Spider-Man, and this slowly changed him. He wanted to be part of something bigger, even if he didn't know how to act like a normal hero. He even admitted multiple times that he wanted to be an Avenger. He wanted validation. He wanted purpose. And that's where his anti-hero era really began to take shape. Deadpool started fighting villains and protecting innocents, not just because it was funny, but because he actually started caring. Eventually, Deadpool earned a real chance to be recognized in the superhero world when he joined the Avengers Unity Division, and this wasn't just a comedic gag, it was Marvel showing that Wade finally crossed the invisible moral line between random chaos villain into chaotic but reliable hero. He wasn't a pure criminal anymore, he was an asset. He mattered. He was someone heroes could call on when the world got messy. His heroism won't ever look neat or clean. I mean, he still kills, he still acts insane, he still breaks fourth walls and causes trouble, but his intent became different. He generally tries to be good, he tries to help people, he tries to save lives when he can, he still lives in the gray, he still plays both sides sometimes, but he actually has a heart now. Something the early villain version Deadpool never had access to. So Deadpool's transformation into a hero wasn't a formal redemption arc, it's a slow evolution of a broken man deciding piece by piece to try to be better, even if he never fully stops being the unpredictable, insane wild card we love. Old Man Star-Lord. Old Man Peter Quill's story starts with a huge shift. Instead of running around the galaxy with the Guardians, he becomes the Emperor of Spartax, builds a family, and tries to rule an entire empire responsibly, which is already wild for someone who once struggled to pay for ship repairs. But the role comes with a price. While he's buried in political duties, the Guardians fight in the Beyonder Wars without him, and Groot dies. That single absence fractures the team and leaves Quill carrying guilt for decades. While Quill is busy being Emperor, the Universal Church of Truth wages a devastating attack on Spartax. They wipe out his planet, murder his wife, and kill his 2 children. It instantly pulls the floor out from under him. The happy future he tried to build collapses in minutes. From that moment forward, Peter stops being a rogue adventurer or a responsible ruler. He becomes a broken, wandering survivor on a personal mission. And that trauma is so overwhelming that he begins hallucinating the Guardians, talking to them as if they are still alive, because he can't cope with the grief alone. When the real Guardians send him a dying message, telling him he's their only hope left to stop the Church, Quill heads back to Earth to retrieve the ultimate nullifier. But the Earth he finds is nothing like the one he left. Dr. Doom rules an authoritarian wasteland called America. Most heroes are dead. Civilization has crumbled into factions, scavenger towns, and gladiator pits. Peter Quill isn't a legendary hero anymore. He is just another relic, stumbling into a nightmare version of the world he once protected. His journey through the Badlands feels more like Mad Max than Guardians of the Galaxy. Old Man Quill is constantly thrown into brutal situations. He has been attacked by Brood, hunted by the Wrecking Crew, ambushed by Ghost Riders, and sold Taskmaster as gladiator entertainment. He fights Fin Fang Foom, he teams up with Spider-Woman, he destroys entire gangs in broken towns. Every chapter of his journey forces him to dig deeper into the last scraps of strength and willpower he has left. It's not a jokey Guardian's adventure. It's a man who's physically aging but emotionally crushed, fighting because he has nothing left except the small hope of stopping the Church. The wildest part comes when Quill tries to retrieve the ultimate nullifier. He ends up time traveling, confronting the Fantastic Four, and battling Kang the Conqueror himself. After years of hallucinating his dead friends, after losing his family, and after seeing Earth fall apart, Peter is suddenly thrust into a cosmic level showdown. He uses everything he has, including a damaged time machine and leftover Hulkbuster armor, just to survive. And even when he finally gets the nullifier back to his present timeline, Doom immediately destroys it, thinking Quill planned to use it against him. Nothing ever comes easy for Old Man Quill, and just when it seems like Quill's journey is completely hopeless, Galactus arrives as the Church's god. The planet is moments away from annihilation, but Quill uses a tiny fragment of the Time Stone fired from Two-Gun Kid's revolver to lobotomize Galactus and breaks the Church's power. It's one of the wildest stories, one of the wildest endings Marvel has ever given a Guardian story. Afterward, Quill visits the ruins of the expansion to honor Shadowcat, fights off the Shadow King, repairs the Milano, renames it the Pride, and heads back into space to rebuild the Guardians. Old Man Quill doesn't get a happy ending, but he earns a second chance, and that's enough to keep him going.
Cobweb. Cobweb is a silly fairy who absolutely loves Spider-Man, not just in a that hero is cool way, but full-on fan behavior. She admired Peter Parker so much that she literally modeled her entire glamour after Spider-Man's suit, web patterns and all. Other sillies found this embarrassing or annoying, but Cobweb didn't care. She wanted to be like her hero. Right away, that makes her different from most Marvel characters. She isn't driven by tragedy or revenge, she is driven by admiration, inspiration, and a simple desire to be a hero like the ones she grew up watching. Cobweb made her debut in Peter and Miles Morales were shrunk down and dragged before the silly court in Central Park. The Spider-Men were in trouble because Juliet, Marcus, had been using silly magic in their domain without permission, which is a big deal in fairy law. As the Spider-Men were captured and judged, Cobweb watched from the sidelines, and instead of doing what the other sillies wanted, she chose to help. She jumped into action, fought other sillies, and secretly guided Peter and Miles toward Queen Mab herself, proving she wasn't just a fan, she was brave. So yeah, Cobweb defied her own kind to protect the Spider-Man. Sillies are all about rules, territory, and ancient traditions, but Cobweb followed her heart instead. She believed Peter and Miles were true heroes and didn't deserve punishment. In the end, Queen Mab agreed. She sensed that Juliet had a pure heart and that Spider-Man represented genuine heroism. Everyone was returned to normal size and disaster was avoided, but Cobweb's actions proved something important. She didn't just like heroes, she lived by their values. And don't get me wrong, Cobweb is actually powerful. As a silly, she has natural fairy abilities, including winged flight, though she prefers swinging around with webs like her idols. Her most Spider-Man-like power is her organic webbing, which she literally spits from her mouth, making her surprisingly effective in combat and movement. The mix of fairy magic and Spider-Man aesthetics gives her a totally unique vibe. She's not a copy of Peter or Miles, she's a magical remix, blending Marvel street-level heroics with mystical folklore. The best moment in Cobweb's story comes at the end when Peter Parker personally gives her his blessing. He officially welcomes her as part of the extended Spider family and gives her the name Spider-Sprite. Cobweb exists to remind readers that heroes don't just fight villains, they create new heroes just by being themselves. She's small, cheerful, and optimistic, but she earned her place through courage, kindness, and belief in doing the right thing. For a debut character, that's a strong start and one with a lot of future potential. And fun fact, Cobweb's design was inspired by Gloria Grant's Cobweb costume in Spectacular Spider-Man Season 2 Episode 12, which was written by Cobweb's creator, Greg Weisman.
Superior Spider-Man, a version where Dr. Octopus takes over Peter Parker's body and becomes a darker, more ruthless Spider-Man. Introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man 698 in 2012 and continuing in Superior Spider-Man 1 in 2013, the storyline completely changed the dynamic of what it means to be Spider-Man, proving that with great powers comes a very different kind of responsibility. The transformation into this character happened when Dr. Octopus, dying from a terminal illness, devised one final master plan. Using his advanced intellect, he successfully switched minds with Peter Parker, leaving Peter trapped in his frail, dying body while Otto claimed Peter's youthful, superpowered form. And despite Peter's attempts to reverse the process, he ultimately died in Otto's failing body, leaving Dr. Octopus as the new Spider-Man. Otto saw this new identity as a chance to prove that he could be a better Spider-Man than Peter ever was. He declared himself the superior Spider-Man and immediately revolutionized the way Spider-Man operated. Using his scientific genius, ruthless tactics, and complete lack of mercy, Otto turned Spider-Man into a far more efficient but brutal protector of New York. One of the key differences between the two characters was Otto's refusal to hold back. He upgraded the suit, adding mechanical arms similar to his former Doc Ock appendages, making himself deadlier than ever. He installed spy drones across the city, creating a surveillance network that allowed him to anticipate crime before it happened. He also brutally beat his enemies, sometimes to near death, and even killed criminals when he deemed it necessary, something Peter would never do. But Otto didn't just want to be a more effective Spider-Man, he also sought to be a more successful Peter Parker. Using his intellect, he earned a doctorate, became a respected scientist, and even took Peter's company Parker Industries to new heights. In many ways, he outperformed Peter in his own life. However, despite his brilliance, Superior Spider-Man was far from perfect. His arrogance and lack of emotional understanding made him increasingly isolated. He alienated Peter's loved ones, treated his allies as pawns, and started believing that his authoritarian rule over New York was necessary for true justice. And his actions became more extreme, and his unchecked ego nearly led him down the path of becoming a full-fledged supervillain in Spider-Man's body. And the breaking point came when Otto faced a threat he couldn't overcome, the Green Goblin. Realizing that despite all his intelligence, he lacked the heart and selflessness that made Peter Parker truly superior. So he willingly erased himself, restoring Peter's consciousness so he could save the city. In the end, Otto acknowledged that Peter Parker was the true Spider-Man, proving that heroism isn't just about efficiency, but about sacrifice and heart. So while Otto Octavius eventually lost the mantle, his time as Spider-Man showed that even villains, when given the chance, can try to be heroes, but their nature will always catch up to them.
Sam Wilson, originally known as the Falcon, and he then took up the mantle of Captain America. Sam debuted in Captain America 117 in 1969 and became the first black superhero in mainstream comics. As the Falcon, he fought beside Steve Rogers for decades, and he wasn't a sidekick. He was a partner, an equal, and often the heart of the mission. But Sam's defining moment came when Steve Rogers was aged into an old man after losing the effects of the super soldier serum, and rather than pass the shield to someone with similar powers, Steve chose Sam. He trusted Sam to carry the ideals of Captain America forward. In all new Captain America in 2014, Sam officially became the new Cap. It wasn't an easy transition, people doubted him, politicians hated him, and even some heroes questioned his word. But Sam made it clear that he wasn't trying to be Steve Rogers. He was being Captain America in his own way. As Cap, Sam took on Hydra, Baron Zemo, and corruption inside the government, fought for the marginalized and voiceless, refusing to ignore issues like racism, inequality, and police violence. And he wielded both the shield and his wings, blending Steve's legacy with his own unique skill set. So him replacing Cap was about carrying the burden of that legacy and adapting it to a new era. He understood that being Captain America wasn't about the flag or the costume. It was about the responsibility to fight for a better world, no matter the cost. Sam eventually gives the shield back to Steve, but later reclaims it again, especially after Steve's image is tarnished during the Secret Empire arc.
Red Hulk. He is a perfect example of a Marvel character who started as a destructive villain but eventually shifted into a more heroic lane. When Red Hulk first showed up in 2008, nobody even knew who he truly was. All we saw was this dangerous, violent, unstoppable figure who was hunting the Hulk and leaving a trail of chaos everywhere he went. He literally killed monsters like Wendigo and even the Abomination. Red Hulk began as pure danger, a military weapon in the form of a Hulk that the heroes couldn't trust, couldn't predict, and couldn't control. Eventually, Marvel revealed the truth. Red Hulk was actually General Thunderbolt Ross, one of Bruce Banner's oldest enemies, a man who dedicated his entire life to capturing or destroying the Hulk. When Ross became Red Hulk, his obsession evolved into something even more intense. Ross didn't want to just stop Hulk anymore. He wanted Hulk's position, Hulk's power, and Hulk's place in the world. He was angry, jealous, driven, and he used this new form to settle his lifetime of grudges. So of course, at first he was a villain because everything he did came from revenge and ego. But over time, Red Hulk slowly shifted into something different, as people started understanding him more. Marvel started writing him into a more anti-hero direction. Fans liked his attitude, his design, and the idea of a second Hulk with a completely different personality. Ross eventually found himself doing more heroic actions, not because he suddenly became a good person, but because he saw bigger threats, bigger dangers, and bigger battles that forced him to fight alongside the good guys instead of against them. So his role and purpose changed, and the Red Hulk wasn't just a monster anymore. Later on, another person even became Red Hulk, a completely separate character who ended up joining the US Avengers. That version was more heroic, by default, and showed that the Red Hulk identity didn't have to be tied to pure villainy. The power could be used for leadership, teamwork, and protecting the world rather than destroying it. Red Hulk went from being a secret murder machine to someone who can actually be part of a superhero team. His story says a lot about Marvel's style. Marvel likes showing that redemption isn't always pure, clean, and noble. Sometimes a villain becomes a hero just because the world gives them a new purpose. So he didn't become a hero because he suddenly turned nice. He became a hero because the world forced him to evolve. And while he will never be as morally clean as someone like Captain America, his evolution proves he is more than just a monster. Rogue. She is one of the most famous X-Men today, but her story did not begin anywhere near the heroic side. She actually started as a villain with the Brotherhood of Mutants, working under Mystique, and she was dangerous. Rogue wasn't just another member, she was one of the Brotherhood's most effective weapons, and her most infamous moments came when she fought Carol Danvers, who was Miss Marvel back then. Rogue absorbed her powers and memories permanently, leaving Carol devastated and mentally broken. That moment made Rogue a full villain in the eyes of the Marvel Universe. But what made Rogue different is that her powers weren't just offensive weapons, they were a curse, absorbing Carol's mind and pain deeply damaged Rogue too. She wasn't stable, she wasn't mentally okay, she couldn't handle the flood of memories that weren't hers. The guilt, the overload, the confusion, it crushed her emotionally. She wasn't enjoying villainy anymore, she wasn't thriving in chaos, she was slowly being destroyed by it. And it was this collapse that forced her to look for help, not as an enemy, but as someone broken who needed guidance. Rogue eventually turned to Professor Xavier because she didn't know how to survive her own mutation anymore. Xavier didn't turn her away. He saw that Rogue wasn't evil at her core. She was a lost girl who made terrible choices and didn't understand the consequences of her powers. He gave her a chance to join the X-Men, but it wasn't simple redemption. Xavier made her work for it, learn from it, grow from it, and confront her trauma step by step. Being part of the X-Men became Rogue's chance to prove she could do better, and she took it seriously. She trained, she fought alongside heroes, she protected other mutants, and she slowly earned trust. Even Carol eventually reached the point where they faced their past instead of running from it. That is massive growth, because Rogue didn't just apologize, she evolved. She didn't stay defined by her mistake, she worked to rise beyond it. And today Rogue is one of the most iconic X-Men. Strong, loved, respected, and full of depth, she is proof that sometimes the strongest heroes aren't the ones who start in the light, they are the ones who crawled out of the dark, owned their mistakes, and rebuilt themselves into something better. Brunhild and her Valkyries. They were some of the most iconic warriors in Asgard's history, fierce and completely dedicated to guiding the souls of fallen heroes to Valhalla. Brunhild, often simply called Valkyrie, was the first among them, and leader of this legendary sisterhood. For centuries in the comics, she stood shoulder to shoulder with Thor, Odin, and the mightiest Asgardians, fighting monsters, gods, and cosmic threats. She wasn't just a fighter, she was the embodiment of honor. Whenever someone died gloriously in battle, Brunhild and her Valkyries were the last faces they saw. Their final stand happened during War of the Realms. Malekith the Accursed launched an all-out invasion across the 10 realms, pushing both Asgard and Midgard to the brink. The Avengers, Thor, and even Odin himself were overwhelmed and forced to retreat. In that desperate moment, the Valkyries chose to stay behind, because protecting the realms was in their nature. They stood as the last line of defense between Malekith's forces and total annihilation. Without any backup, Brunhild and her Valkyries were completely overrun. The battlefield became a slaughter, with the Valkyries falling one by one. Brunhild held her ground until the end, but even she couldn't withstand Malekith's overwhelming power. In a brutal moment that stunned readers, Malekith impaled Brunhild and then beheaded her, and then cleaved her in half, marking the permanent destruction of the original Valkyrie line. It wasn't a heroic death with fanfare, it was raw, violent, and meant to show just how hopeless the situation had become. While Jane Foster eventually stepped up and became the new Valkyrie, inheriting the sacred duty and forging a new path, the original one never returned. Their legacy didn't vanish, but their era ended on that battlefield, making their deaths some of the most devastating in Asgard's history. Rocket the Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon's origin is one of the strangest in Marvel history. He wasn't created to be a major hero or even part of the Marvel universe. He came from a one-off, experimental sci-fi story inspired by the Beatles' song Rocky Raccoon. Writer Bill Mantlo thought it would be funny to make a space raccoon sheriff protecting a world run by robotic animals. That's it. No grand plan, no long-term direction. Rocket was literally a musical reference turned into a comic character, the definition of created by mistake. His first real appearance was in Marvel Preview issue 7 in 1967, when the story was so surreal that Marvel had no idea what to do with him afterward. Half-World, Rocket's home, was a bizarre mix of talking animals, killer clowns, super intelligent robots, and psychological experiments. It didn't fit with the Avengers, the X-Men, or any traditional Marvel comic, and after a random appearance in Incredible Hulk issue 271, Rocket vanished. For almost 20 years, Marvel pretty much forgot he existed because nobody knew where a gun-wielding, talking raccoon actually belonged. And for the longest time, Rocket was considered too goofy to use. He was a C-tier character with no direction. Then, in 2007, everything changed. During Annihilation Conquest, writers Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning took all of Marvel's forgotten cosmic characters and reinvented them, Rocket included. Suddenly, this weird joke character became a sarcastic, brilliant, foul-mouthed tactician who carried giant guns and had a tragic past. He was no longer a Beatles reference. And after New Annihilation, Rocket joined the new Guardians of the Galaxy lineup, a ragtag group of cosmic rejects that Marvel didn't expect to succeed. But Rocket immediately became the comedic backbone of the team. His insults, his chaos energy, and his partnership with Groot made him stand out in every issue. Fans fell in love with him for the same reason Marvel once avoided him. He was strange, loud, unpredictable, and full of heart. Rocket went from forgotten mistake to fan favorite chaos gremlin almost overnight. And when Marvel announced Rocket would appear in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, people thought it would flop. A talking raccoon in a serious superhero film? No way that's gonna work. Then Bradley Cooper voiced him, James Gunn reimagined him, and Rocket instantly became one of Marvel's most beloved characters. His trauma, his humor, his rage, and his loyalty turned him into more than comic relief. He became the emotional heart of the franchise. Kids, adults,
Even hardcore comic fans suddenly knew who Rocket was. His story is one of the greatest accidental success stories in Marvel history. Today, Rocket is a core MCU character, a symbol of found family, and the proof that sometimes these strangest ideas end up becoming the most iconic. Gambit. Remy grew up inside the criminal world, raised by the Thieves Guild, trained to steal, manipulate, survive, and operate in the shadows. His entire childhood and young adult life were built on crime. That lifestyle shaped his morals, his instincts, his worldview. So when Gambit entered the Marvel Universe, he wasn't a noble man fighting for justice. He was someone who had lived on the wrong side of the law for as long as he could remember. Because of his criminal roots, Gambit eventually ended up working for Mr. Sinister, one of the most dangerous manipulators in mutant history. And that alliance placed Gambit in some dark chapters, including events such as the Morlock Massacre, which became one of the biggest stains on his past. Remy wasn't a typical villain who wanted destruction. He was a survivor who got pulled into terrible things because he didn't believe he had another life he could go to. His villain era wasn't driven by pure evil, it was driven by a lifetime of crime, loyalty to the wrong people, and believing that darkness was normal. But everything began to change when Gambit crossed paths with the X-Men. For the first time, he found people he actually respects, connect with, and trust in a way he never trusted the criminal world. And all it took was a single bond, one friendship, to begin shifting him out of villainy. Joining the X-Men didn't magically erase his past, but it gave Gambit a reason to fight for others instead of fighting only for himself. When Gambit chose the X-Men, he didn't instantly get acceptance. Many X-Men didn't trust him at the beginning. They knew he had history with Sinister. They knew he did terrible things, and Gambit wasn't a perfect teammate either. He had his own rules, his own methods, and his own style that didn't always match the clean heroic system the X-Men tried to follow. But over time he softened, he learned. He started valuing his teammates more than his old survival instincts. One of the biggest parts of Gambit's growth is his relationship with Rogue. She grounded him. She helped him grow emotionally. She gave him something beyond crime and secrets. She gave him real love, partnership, and a future that wasn't defined by villainy. Their relationship became a symbol of his evolution. Remy wasn't just a thief anymore. He became someone who actually cared about the world, about the X-Men, and about the people he fought beside. So Gambit's shift from villain to hero is built on something deeply human: connection. He changed because he finally found people worth protecting. And because of that transformation, Gambit stands today as a stylish, charming, complicated, but genuine hero. Chris Powell, aka Darkhawk. He started out as a normal kid, dealing with real-life problems, until he stumbled onto the mysterious Raptor amulet. With it, he could switch places with a powerful alien android linked to the Shi'ar Empire. One moment he's Chris Powell, stressed out high schooler, the next he's Darkhawk, a chrome-armored warrior with energy blasts, flight, and enough edge to fit right in with 90s Marvel. He fought alongside Spider-Man, the New Warriors, the Fantastic Four, pretty much anyone who needed backup, and built a reputation as a brave, if sometimes overwhelmed young hero. His lore got bigger and weirder over time. What started out as a cool teenage hero in a shiny suit evolved into a full-on cosmic mythos involving the fraternity of raptors, ancient Shi'ar secrets, and android warriors tied to universal balance. Chris found himself in the middle of these huge cosmic plots, trying to navigate a destiny he never asked for. Even as his role expanded, he never stopped feeling like that kid trying to do the right thing, no matter how complicated the universe got around him. His death, unfortunately, was nowhere near as grand as the scale of his story had become. In the 2021 one-shot, Darkhawk, A Heart of the Hawk, Chris discovered a dangerous fracture in time and space, something so unstable it could tear apart entire systems. Realizing he didn't have the power to stop it himself, he spent months collecting data and documenting everything he'd learned. His goal wasn't to win, but to pass the torch. He recorded his entire life story, all his battles, all his experiences, and set it up so a future successor would have every tool, every piece of knowledge they needed to continue the fight he couldn't finish. In the end, Chris chose to sacrifice himself. Once the final message was sent and the Raptor amulet was passed on, his ship lost power and drifted straight into the cosmic rift. There was no dramatic explosion, no heroic last words, just a quiet, lonely end for a hero who deserved so much more. Ghost Panther. He was born during the Infinity Wars event, when Gamora used the Infinity Stones to fold the entire universe in half, merging every soul into another. That cosmic accident created Rap World, a reality where two heroes often became one. In this bizarre fusion, T'Challa the Black Panther merged with Johnny Blaze the Ghost Rider, creating a flaming, soul-hunting version of the Wakandan king, the Ghost Panther. In this world, T'Challa's story is drastically different. Instead of becoming the noble protector of Wakanda, he was exiled by his father, T'Chaka, for his arrogance. Far from home, he reinvented himself himself as a daredevil stunt rider under the name Johnny Blaze, performing dangerous shows under the guidance of Jericho Simpson. But his career ended in tragedy, a fatal stunt gone wrong. Desperate to save his protege, Jericho performed an ancient ritual and summoned the demon Zarathos, offering to restore T'Challa's life. Zarathos sensed the hunter's soul within him and tempted him with great power, but as always, the price was damnation. After being resurrected, T'Challa returned to Wakanda, only to discover his father's murder and the destruction of the sacred, heart-shaped herb. His country was lost, and his legacy was gone. When he hunted his father's killers, Zarathos offered him a dark bargain: accept the power of vengeance and become his champion. Desperate to avenge his father, T'Challa gave in, transforming into the fiery Ghost Panther. He devoured his enemy's soul, but quickly realized how intoxicating and horrifying the power truly was. T'Challa's journey didn't end there. He tried to reject Zarathos' influence, but fate pulled him back in when his sister, Shuri, and Wakanda were threatened by the warrior Raven. To save his people, even his father's spirit urged him to accept the demonic power once more. T'Challa returned from the afterlife as a full-fledged Ghost Panther, part spirit of vengeance, part ancestral protector. He charged Raven's forces with supernatural fury, ensuring that Wakanda would never fall. In the end, Ghost Panther became both a savior and a symbol, and when the pocket universe of Rap World was eventually preserved inside the Soul Gem, Ghost Panther remained one of its guardians. Eternal Storm. In Storm Issue 4, Marvel finally gives her the upgrade fans have long suspected she deserved, an avatar of creation itself. In this form, Ororo becomes the Storm, across galaxies, dimensions, and the very fabric of existence. It all begins with a dinner with Doctor Doom that turns deadly. During a stretch where Storm has lost access to her mutant abilities, Doom manipulates her into reawakening her powers before she's ready, and that mistake brings her face to face with Egon, an ancient spirit bound by a deal that had previously saved her life. When she breaks that pact, the spirit impels her into a brutal act of cosmic justice. For a brief moment, the woman who could call lightning from the heavens lies dead, her power extinguished. But this is Marvel. Death is never the end. As her soul drifts between life and death, she meets her father, and the embodiment of the universe itself, Eternity, appears. And instead of taking her soul, Eternity offers her its power. The same cosmic entity that represents all of existence deems Storm worthy of becoming its avatar. When she returns, she is reborn as Eternal Storm, her eyes blazing with galaxies, her body a conduit for the universe's raw energy. This isn't just more lightning. Storm's new form operates on a scale far beyond Omega level mutation. She can command cosmic weather, not just clouds and rain, but solar winds, black hole currents, and elemental forces that shape entire worlds. Her power flows directly from Eternity, meaning she's linked to the heartbeat of the universe itself. In her return, she channels that power into pure vengeance, annihilating Egon with a lightning storm so massive it tears through realms. What's remarkable about this form isn't only the strength, but what it means. Storm's always been about balance between humanity and divinity, compassion and power, leadership and freedom. And as Eternal Storm, she embodies all of that. She's the union of Earth and Cosmos, a bridge between mortal life and infinite creation. And it's fitting that Eternity chose her. She's one of the few heroes who wields power without ego. So she's no longer just the weather goddess or the X-Men's elemental powerhouse. She's become something transcendent.
Robbie Reyes. He is a bold reinvention of the Ghost Rider mythos. Not a cursed stuntman or biker, but a street racer from East LA, with a burning sense of justice and a deeper reason to fight: his little brother. Introduced in all new Ghost Rider 1 in 2014, Robbie brought a new energy to the mantle of Ghost Rider. Younger, angrier, and far more human. So Robbie is a high school student and mechanic struggling to survive in a crime-ridden neighborhood, while raising his disabled younger brother Gabe. Desperate for money, Robbie enters a street race using a muscle car he's been fixing up. But the race goes sideways, and Robbie is gunned down by gang members who think he's transporting drugs. Instead of dying, Robbie is resurrected by a vengeful spirit named Eli Moreau, a former serial killer who now possesses him. Thus begins his life as the new Ghost Rider, not on a motorcycle, but in a roaring, flaming hell charger. Unlike Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch, Robbie's connection to his spirit isn't based on a deal with the devil. It's a possessive relationship, and not always a cooperative one. Eli constantly tempts him to give in to rage, to kill without mercy, while Robbie tries to channel the power toward protecting his family and community. And that inner conflict is what makes Robbie stand out. Robbie possesses superhuman strength and durability, the ability to transform into a flaming skeletal form, and the power to summon hellfire and create weapons from it. and he has a unique hill charger that moves like a living beast and can phase through buildings and across dimensions. And despite being new to the supernatural scene, Robbie earns the respect of major players fast. He joins the Avengers, fights alongside heroes like Captain Marvel, Black Panther and Doctor Strange, so Robbie Reyes transforms the Ghost Rider legacy from one of domination to one of redemption, and he is the modern face of vengeance.
Sabretooth. He is one of those villains people never expected to turn even slightly heroic, because for decades he was basically Wolverine's evil mirror. Same healing factor, same savage instincts, but with none of the moral restraint. He was pure violence, cruel, predatory, and he took pleasure in destroying people's lives, especially Logan's. So when Marvel slowly started giving him small hints of redemption, it felt shocking because Sabretooth wasn't a villain driven by trauma like Magneto or by ego like Doctor Doom. Sabretooth was driven by pure instinct and pure brutality. There were early signs of this shift in alternate realities like Age of Apocalypse, where Sabretooth was shown as a loyal X-Man. In that timeline, he wasn't a monster, he wasn't a stalker, he wasn't a wild killer. He was a hero with honor and control, showing that deep inside Victor Creed, there could be a different version of him, a version that could care about others. And that alternate depiction planted the seed that maybe Sabretooth wasn't 100% doomed to be evil forever, even if his main timeline version still acted like a nightmare predator. Later, he was even forced into more heroic roles, like when he was pushed into the government's X-Factor operations. Sabretooth didn't choose to be a hero there, but the situation forced him to cooperate with good guys and fight bigger threats. And sometimes, when someone like Sabretooth is forced to work in a team, even a small spark of loyalty or discipline can start to form. This is where fans noticed that maybe he could walk a different path, even if he wasn't doing it voluntarily at first. But his biggest turning point came from Access. The magical inversion flipped moral alignments, heroes became villains, villains became heroes, and when everything was reversed later, most characters went back to normal, except Sabretooth. He stayed inverted. He kept the heroic mindset. For the first time in his main universe form, Sabretooth actually had a conscience. He tried to do the right thing. He tried not to kill for pleasure. He finally had something Wolverine always had: guilt, restraint, responsibility. And that changed everything. After Access, Sabretooth served on different X-Men teams, trying to live a different kind of life. He wasn't suddenly pure and noble, but he was trying. And that effort alone meant more than any temporary team-up in the past. It was one of the most unexpected redemption shifts in Marvel history. A villain like him earning even a small amount of light is far more dramatic than a character who was already morally complicated. So him becoming a hero shows Marvel's core moral lesson. Nobody is permanently locked into the role the world expects from them.
Dylan Brooke. He's the next evolution in the legacy of Venom. Introduced in Venom Volume 4, Issue 7 in 2018, Dylan's rise from a mysterious child to the new Venom is one of the most compelling generational stories in modern Marvel comics. At first, Dylan appears to be a regular kid, quiet, awkward, and caught in the crossfire of his father's endless battles with monsters, aliens, and inner demons. But as the story unfolds, it's revealed that Dylan is more than just Eddie's son. He's a unique hybrid, born with the help of the symbiote codex and genetically altered by symbiote DNA. Dylan is part human, part symbiote himself, and this makes him incredibly special in the larger cosmic mythos of the symbiotes. Dylan has a deep, almost empathic connection to symbiotes. He can communicate with them telepathically, he can command or repel them, even when they're bonded to others, and he can generate symbiote-like tendrils from his own body, even without a host. And during the massive King in Black storyline, Dylan plays a crucial role in the fight against Null. And even as a child, his powers is immense, and Null considers him a serious threat. Eddie sacrifices everything to stop Null, ultimately defeating him and ascending to the throne as the new King in Black, the cosmic ruler of the symbiote hive. But Eddie can't remain on Earth to be a father and hero. He's now disconnected in time and space, guiding the symbiotes across the galaxy. So the mantle of Venom passes to Dylan. Now as Venom, Dylan carries forward the legacy Eddie built, but with a new edge. He's younger, angrier, and more volatile, still coming to terms with who he is and the responsibilities placed on his shoulders. But he's also fiercely loyal, brave, and protective, especially of Innocence and his symbiote partner, who has evolved with him. And where Eddie struggled with guilt, addiction, and redemption, Dylan is not a man haunted by his past. He's a kid trying to survive a future that was forced on him. So Dylan Brooke is the beginning of something completely new.
Worthy Widow. It is one of those what-if versions of Natasha Romanoff that instantly makes you wish it was canon. It takes on Marvel's most grounded human characters, a woman with no powers, no gods watching over her, and no backup beyond her own will, and gives her the power of a god. In this alternate reality from What If, Age of Ultron issue 3, the world has been torn apart by Ragnarok. Thor falls in the final battle against the World Serpent, and in the aftermath, most of the Avengers are dead. The world is collapsing into chaos. Frost giants roam the earth, and the last remnants of humanity are being hunted. But among the few survivors, Nick Fury, Falcon, Shang-Chi, Microchip, and Natasha, one hero refuses to accept the end. And that's where the legend of White Widow begins. When she finds Mjolnir lying among the ruins of the battle, and when she grips the hammer, she lifts it. And in that instant, the Black Widow becomes the new god of thunder. Lightning surges through her suit fuses with Asgardian armor, and the woman once trained to kill now carries the power to save entire worlds. As White Widow, Natasha wastes no time. She takes the risks, summoning storms that tear through the armies of frost giants and dives straight into the combat against the World Serpent. The battle is pure myth. Natasha fights with the fury of a god but the precision of a soldier. Nick Fury, narrating the story, calls her the stuff of legend, saying that out of all the madness he's seen, gods, aliens, monsters, nothing compared to seeing Black Widow leading warriors and Valkyries into battle, a hammer in hand, eyes blazing with lightning. For her, Mjolnir isn't a weapon, it's absolution. Natasha's entire life has been defined by guilt, red in her ledger, blood on her hands, a past she can't erase. But when she lifts that hammer, the universe itself declares her worthy. And unlike many other heroes who lifted Mjolnir out of power or fate, Natasha lifts it out of need. The tragedy, of course, is that we only get a glimpse of her in this role. The story ends with Fury's reflection on that one perfect moment when Natasha Romanoff, the human among gods, stood against the end of everything and won. Yes, it's just a fun what-if story, but it's the ultimate testament to who Natasha really is. Strip away the gadgets, the espionage, and the spy games, and what's left is someone who's always been ready to pick up the hammer when no one else could. The Goddess of Thunder. Long before Charles Xavier found her and taught her the word mutant, Ororo was already worshipped as a weather goddess in Africa. Her power wasn't just science or mutation, it was divine. Over the years, writers hinted that there was something more mystical in her connection to the elements, but it wasn't until Asgardian Wars in 1985 that Marvel made that literal. In that storyline, Loki gifts Storm a new hammer, similar to Thor's Mjolnir, hoping to manipulate her into becoming his own champion. Instead, she becomes something far greater, the Goddess of Thunder. When Storm first wielded that hammer, it wasn't just a costume change, it was a revelation. What made it even cooler was how different she was from Thor. Where Thor's thunder was raw and wild, Storm's was balanced and harmonious, an extension of her empathy with nature itself. She didn't just call lightning, she communed with it. But the Asgardian gods, being who they are, the transformation didn't last forever. Loki's manipulations were exposed, and Ororo gave up the hammer rather than let anyone, even gods, control her destiny. Decades later, Marvel brought that idea full circle. In Black Panther issue 172, T'Challa himself calls her what she's always been, a true goddess. During their reconnection, T'Challa tells her to embrace her heritage as a descendant of African priestesses. And around the same time in X-Men Gold issue 26, Marvel teased her return to that goddess of thunder status in a big way. Jason Aaron's Thor comics introduced a universe filled with hundreds of new hammers, scattered across creation after Mjolnir's destruction. One of those hammers finds its way to Ororo, and it responds to her. Instantly she becomes the goddess of thunder again, wielding Asgardian power with her own mutant divinity. It's a statement that she's one of the few beings in Marvel who truly bridges the gap between god and mortal. Unlike Thor, who was born into divinity, Storm earned it. Her godhood isn't handed down by Odin. It's born from compassion, willpower, and her role as a protector. When she wields the hammer, it's not about control, it's about unity with natural and divine forces of the universe. In short, Goddess of Thunderstorm is the perfect embodiment of everything Ororo Munro stands for. She's not just an Omega-level mutant, she's a cosmic elemental deity who commands the respect of gods and mortals alike. Whether she's leading the X-Men, ruling alongside the Black Panther, or standing among the pantheon of Asgard, Storm doesn't need anyone's approval to claim her power.
Alejandra Jones. Yes, he is an overlooked Ghost Rider, but her story is packed with intensity despite how short her time in the spotlight was. She was chosen to become the next Spirit of Vengeance after Danny Ketch, stepping into a legacy that stretches across centuries. Unlike Johnny Blaze or Danny, who had years to figure out the curse, Jones was thrown into the role fast and hard. She struggled with the moral weight of being Ghost Rider, often feeling like she had to live up to an impossible standard. And because she wasn't raised with the same level of mentorship, her journey was way more chaotic and unpredictable. Her most memorable moment came during the Wild Circle of 4 storyline.
where she teamed up with Agent Venom, Red Hulk, and X-23. Together they faced a demonic threat straight out of a nightmare, basically a twisted, hellish version of Las Vegas. Jones proved her worth in that event, showing she could hang with some of Marvel's most intense anti-heroes, but the experience left a permanent mark on her. She ended up carrying a symbiote codex, a tiny fragment of symbiote DNA embedded inside her soul. That little detail would eventually come back to haunt her. When the Absolute Carnage event hit, Carnage was hunting down anyone with a codex to power himself. Jones became a target, and in the one-shot Symbiote of Vengeance, Carnage tracked her down with brutal efficiency. She fought hard, but Carnage, empowered by a god-level symbiote, was simply too much. In one of the event's most heartbreaking kills, he killed John to rip the codex from her. It was a quick, merciless end to a Ghost Rider who never got the chance to reach her full potential. But even that didn't silence her completely. John's spirit managed to come back briefly as a ghost, fighting alongside Danny Ketch to keep him from being slaughtered by Carnage. It was a final, defiant stand, one last moment of heroism before fading for good. The God Without Fear. Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, is already one of Marvel's most fascinating heroes, a blind lawyer by day, a vigilante by night, and someone constantly wrestling with fate, morality, and guilt. So when he gets cosmic powers, it's the ultimate collision of street-level heroics with god-tier awareness. The God Without Fear first shows up in War of the Realms, and the moment you see him, you just know this is not your usual Hell's Kitchen story. It all starts when the War of the Realms spills onto Earth and chaos erupts. Malekith and his army are invading, the 10 realms are colliding, and everyone from Thor to Spider-Man is getting pulled into this massive battle. In the middle of it all, Daredevil ends up wielding Hofund, Heimdall's enchanted sword. But here's the kicker. The sword doesn't just give him a weapon, it also grants him cosmic sight, essentially the ability to see everything across the 9 realms all at once. For a guy who's been blind his whole life, suddenly being able to see not just the world but the entire cosmos, that's huge. And Matt doesn't just gain vision, he gains Heimdall's cosmic awareness, meaning he can perceive threats across time and space. This takes Daredevil from being a protector of Hell's Kitchen to someone who can literally watch the entire universe. It's one of those wow moments where you realize just how much dangerous and capable Matt becomes with his upgrade. In this form, Daredevil is an absolute force. He fights frost giants, dark elves, and other mythic threats like he's been doing it his whole life. His senses are so heightened that he's practically untouchable in combat. And yes, like most cosmic power-ups in Marvel, it's a temporary thing, but it leaves a huge impression on Matt and on readers. After experiencing that level of perception, Matt has to come back down to earth, literally, and return to the gritty, grounded life he had before. So even when he's given godlike power, he still has to face the small, painful struggles that make him who he is. He doesn't lose himself to power. He doesn't try to become some cosmic overlord. Instead, he uses the gift to protect others and fight for justice on a scale he never thought possible. It's a brief moment where Daredevil stops being the devil of Hell's Kitchen and becomes something closer to the Watcher of the Realms. The God Without Fear isn't just a flashy power-up, it's a glimpse at what makes Matt Murdock so compelling. Cosmic Spider-Man. Among the countless spider people across the multiverse, none shine brighter, literally and metaphorically, than Cosmic Spider-Man of Earth 13, also known as Enigma Force Spider-Man. This version of Peter Parker is a cosmic god. He possesses the Enigma Force, the same mysterious energy that transforms mortals into Captain Universe, and it elevates him to a level where he can stand alongside Marvel's most powerful beings. So in the past of Earth 13, Peter Parker lived a life very similar to the main universe's Spider-Man, bitten by a radioactive spider, the loss of Uncle Ben, guilt, heroism, all of it. But everything changed when he was chosen by the Enigma Force, granting him the full power of Captain Universe. Now he has unlimited cosmic awareness, he can manipulate energy. On a molecular level, he can fly and travel faster than light, he has super strength far beyond his usual levels, he can wrap reality in minor forms, invulnerability to most forms of attack, and matter transmutation. So essentially he's a cosmic god with spider sense, and he was a central figure in Spider-Verse 2014, where various spider people across the multiverse unite to battle the Inheritors, an ancient vampire-like family that feeds on spider totems. And as the most powerful among them, this Spider-Man becomes the leader of the multiversal resistance. He sets up base in his own universe because his version of Earth is safe from Inheritor attacks thanks to his immense cosmic power. But unfortunately, even godlike strength has limits. Morland's father Solus eventually kills Cosmic Spider-Man by absorbing the Enigma Force, and this moment shocks the Spider-Verse alliance. So he was the potential of Peter Parker fully unleashed. We always hear the line, "With great power comes great responsibility," and this Peter bears the greatest responsibility of all. He's noble, kind and wise, yet never loses the humility that makes Spider-Man who he is. God of Light Venom.
In Marvel's King in Black event, and by the end of the cosmic war against Null, the long host of the alien symbiote Venom doesn't just become a stronger version of himself, he becomes the God of Light, the ultimate antithesis, and the new King in Black. For years, Null loomed as the creator of the symbiotes, a primordial being born in the void before time who despised all light and life. He controlled a vast army of symbiotes and brought entire worlds to their knees. And when he invaded Earth, it was the final war between darkness and light. No one, not the Avengers, not the X-Men, and not even cosmic entities could stop him. But in the middle of the chaos, something unexpected happens. The Enigma Force, also known as the God of Light, finally takes a host, Erebrook. This cosmic power is the same force that once turned Peter Parker into Captain Universe, and now, sensing the purity in Eddie's will to protect his son and the world, it chooses him. Erebrook becomes Venom, no longer powered by a symbiote, but by pure cosmic light. And in this new form, God of Light's Venom is nearly unstoppable. He towers with celestial brilliance, adorned in living armor, shaped like Venom but glowing with radiant energy. He wields Mjolnir and the Silver Surfer's board, fused into a massive battle axe, a weapon that combines divine thunder and the power cosmic. And with this, Eddie takes the fight directly to Null, in a way no one else could. And during their final confrontation, Null tries to corrupt Eddie, to wrap his tendrils of darkness around him like he did to so many others. But Eddie has transcended his fears, his anger, and even the Venom persona itself. He rips the symbiote god from the heart of the planet, flies him into the stars, and destroys Null by throwing him into the sun. Pure light cleansing pure darkness. And after Null's defeat, Eddie doesn't return to being just a host, he becomes the new King in Black, but one of balance. He now watches over the symbiote hive mind, becoming its protector and guiding force. So from street-level anti-hero to universal guardian, God of Light Venom is the final evolution of Erebrook.
Emma Frost. She has probably one of the most famous secondary mutations in Marvel Comics. Originally, she was known purely for her powerful, telepathic abilities, making her one of the strongest psychic mutants in the X-Men universe. For years, her powers focused entirely on reading minds, projecting thoughts, and controlling metal energy. Everything changed after the destruction of Genosha. During the explosion, Emma survived because her body instinctively transformed into a diamond-like form, revealing a brand new secondary mutation. And this transformation covered her entire body in a nearly indestructible organic diamond structure, protecting her from the blast. Since then, Emma Frost has been able to switch between her human form and her diamond form at will. In this state, her body becomes extremely durable and resistant to physical damage, though she temporarily loses access to her telepathic powers.
Mystique. She is one of the most unpredictable characters in Marvel because she changes more than just her body. She changes sides, beliefs, and motivations depending on where life pushes her. She started as a villain, one of the heads of the Brotherhood, a threat to the X-Men, and a symbol of fear and chaos. But even as a villain, Mystique wasn't evil just because she wanted destruction. She always acted out of survival, trauma, identity, and protecting mutants, especially her own family. She is someone who has lived through hate, bigotry, and rejection for decades, so her motives are always emotional, even if they look cold and violent to others. Throughout the years, Mystique has flipped sides multiple times. She's been forced to cooperate with the X-Men, she worked with them at other times, and she's been thrown into government's programs like X-Factor, where she had to act like a hero just to stay alive. And even though she can perfectly mimic anyone physically, mentally she is still lost, confused, angry, and trying to figure out where she belongs. She becomes a tragic anti-hero because she wants to protect mutants. She wants a home, but she never trusts that home to last. So sometimes she saves the world, and sometimes she destroys relationships, trying to protect herself first. She does not trust humans, she does not trust governments, and she barely trusts mutants. She has been used, haunted, betrayed, and manipulated for so long that she doesn't believe in moral purity. She believes in results. She believes in doing whatever she has to do to survive tomorrow. That's why heroes don't fully hate her and villains don't fully respect her, because nobody actually knows how far she will go or what side she will end up on next. In some eras, she genuinely tried to reform. She wanted something stable. She wanted a place to exist without being threatened. She wanted to do good in her own way, and this made her extremely similar to Magneto. Not a monster, not a person, but a person who became extreme because the world forced her to become extreme. Her morality is kind of liquid, flexible and unstable, but that's what makes her one of the most interesting Marvel characters to ever switch sides. Then came the Krakoa era, and Krakoa shaped her character massively.
In Krakoa, mutants finally built a nation of their own, and Mystique became a major part of that world. But even in Krakoa, she wasn't peaceful and obedient. She carried distrust and rage inside her. She wanted to protect her lover Destiny, she wanted to protect mutants' future, and she was willing to burn nations if needed. So she wasn't a simple villain. She was a political force, a revolutionary, a wild card who could either save Krakoa or destroy it from the inside, depending on who lied to her and who betrayed her. So Mystique becoming a hero isn't like a clean redemption arc. She never becomes fully heroic. She becomes a neutral storm, a woman who does the right thing only when it aligns with her heart and her family. She can be an X-Man, a terrorist, a spy, and sometimes all of those roles in one single storyline. And that makes sense. Redemption is not black or white. It's messy, emotionally driven, and always shifting, just like she is. Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff didn't begin her journey fighting for the Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. She was shaped in the brutal environment of the Soviet Red Room, trained from childhood to be a perfect weapon, a spy, an assassin, and a tool of the KGB. She was programmed to deceive, eliminate targets, and destroy lives for the sake of her mission. Her early years were not heroic at all. They were controlled, cold, and deeply traumatizing, forming someone who believed her purpose was to serve the state through espionage and violence. Her physical abilities, enhanced by a Soviet attempt at a super soldier serum, only made her more dangerous. She wasn't born with powers or privilege, she was engineered and molded into something lethal. And in the beginning of her comic appearances, Black Widow wasn't helping heroes, she was working against them. She was a threat. She manipulated Hawkeye, tried to take down Iron Man, and operated as a villain because that's who she was thought to be. A ruthless agent, serving her handlers without question. But deep inside Natasha, there was always resistance. Even during her villain phase, she had bits of humanity that refused to stay silent forever. She didn't fully believe in the cruelty she was ordered to perform. She questioned her role. She doubted the morality of those controlling her, and slowly, she began looking for a way out. This slow internal rebellion eventually led her to break away from the Soviet control, with Hawkeye and later the Avengers offering her the chance she desperately needed to define herself beyond her programming. When she finally became free, she wasn't magically transformed into a noble hero overnight. She had to work hard to earn trust, to build a new identity, to learn how to fight for good instead of blindly following orders. Joining the Avengers wasn't just a new team for her, it was her rebirth. She left behind the role of a weapon and became someone who fought to protect instead of destroy. And this path toward redemption wasn't temporary, it became her entire future. Black Widow's heroism became stronger because she chose it, after surviving an environment that tried to erase her emotions forever. Over time, she became a core part of Earth's mightiest heroes, a respected S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and one of the most skilled and strategic members of the Avengers. People trust Black Widow today because she earned that trust through experience, sacrifice, and loyalty. The past doesn't decide who you will become. Natasha began her Marvel history as a villainous spy, but she evolved into a brave, intelligent, powerful hero. One who protects the world not because she was raised to, but because she fought for the freedom to choose that destiny itself. Binary. Before she was Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers reached godlike heights as Binary, one of the most powerful forms she has ever achieved. And this transformation didn't come from Kree technology, it came from a cosmic explosion that rewrote her very DNA, turning her into a living star. The origin of Binary begins during the classic Uncanny X-Men run by Chris Claremont, after Carol's power as Miss Marvel were stripped from her by Rogue, who at the time was still a villain. She was left powerless and emotionally broken. The X-Men took her in, and during a mission in space, Danvers was captured by an alien race known as the Brood. And while experimenting on her, the Brood accidentally unlocked Carol's true potential, activating the dormant Kree-human hybrid DNA that had been altered over the years. And the result was Binary, a being fused with the power of a white hole, allowing her to tap into the full electromagnetic spectrum, manipulate stellar energy, and generate heat and radiation on a cosmic scale. She could fly faster than light, survive in space without protection, and go toe-to-toe with galactic threats. She was a walking supernova. As Binary, she joined the Starjammers, a group of spacefaring rebels led by Corsair, Cyclops' father, and spent years off-world battling cosmic threats. Her power level during this time was easily on par with top-tier Avengers and even some celestial-level beings. She could bend the laws of physics with energy blasts, absorb radiation, and emit the energy of a star. And though Carol eventually lost the Binary power, burning it out after years of overuse, it never truly left her. Later runs, including Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson, show moments where the Binary form returns, either through memory, dreams, or temporary bursts of power. Earth X Captain America. Set in a future where nearly every human has developed mutant-like powers due to the Terrigen Mist, Steve Rogers is one of the last normal humans left, and it shows. He's older, warier, and visibly scarred, physically and emotionally.
The bright costume and shining shield gone. Instead, he's draped in the American flag like a tattered cape, with a massive scar running down his face in the shape of an A. This cap is no longer the symbol of an idealized America. It's the embodiment of a broken one. He still believes in justice, in doing what's right, but he carries the burden of everyone else forgetting what those words mean. He blames himself for not stopping the rise of authoritarianism, for not saving the heroes who fell, and for the state the world is in. That guilt drives him to keep fighting, not out of glory, but out of obligation, out of duty. Even with no superpowers, no shield and no team, Cap keeps going because someone has to stand up. What's striking about Earth X Cap is that he becomes almost a mythic figure. He's like a ghost marching across a ruined battlefield, showing up where he's needed, but to remind people that the fight still matters. He leads a resistance, working with remnants of the Inhumans and surviving heroes, trying to piece together what's left of Earth while uncovering cosmic secrets that explain why everything fell apart in the first place. And yet, he never puts himself above others. He's still humble, still that kid from Brooklyn, under all the layers of tragedy. He challenges characters like the Skull, who represents childish selfishness, taken to world-ending extremes. When they finally meet, he breaks the Skull's hold on people by refusing to give in, by inspiring them to remember who they are. That moment where people shake off the Skull's control just by seeing Cap stand tall again is the real victory. This version of Cap is not perfect, and as I mentioned, he's certainly not shiny, but he's real, still walking forward when everyone else has stopped, and that, more than any super soldier serum or vibranium shield, is what makes him a hero.
Legion. He is one of the most powerful mutants in Marvel Comics, and probably the most deeply layered character in the universe. As the son of Professor Charles Xavier, David was born with incredible potential, but from the moment his powers manifested, he became a living battleground of fractured identities, each one possessing a different superpower and a mind of its own. Introduced in New Mutants 25 in 1985, Legion is a textbook definition of an Omega-level mutant. He can warp reality, manipulate time, rewrite minds, teleport, generate fire, and even erase people from existence. But the terrifying catch is this: every single one of his powers belongs to a different personality living inside him, and there are hundreds. Each of his personalities, also called alters, developed after a terrorist attack in his youth that killed his stepfather and caused his powers to erupt uncontrollably. His consciousness shattered, and each personality took on a distinct power and its own will. Some of his most notable personalities include Jack Wayne, a bold, aggressive alter with telekinetic powers, often fights for dominance; Cindy, a rebellious pyromaniac alter who can generate and control fire; Jermail, Time Sync, that controls time itself with the ability to trap people in time loops; the Origamist, that bends reality and folds space like paper; and Moira, a strategist and planner who once tried to help David organize the chaos within his mind. At any given moment, any of them can take control, which makes David incredibly dangerous, even to himself. Sometimes he begs for help, other times he's completely unaware of what he's done, and then there are moments when one of his more aggressive personalities takes over and wreaks absolute havoc. Legion's mind is often visualized as a mental landscape, where his personalities live in a kind of psychic prison, constantly vying for control. Some want to help him, others want to destroy the world, and David is stuck in the middle, trying to make sense of a world that fears him and a mind that betrays him at every turn. In the X-Men Legacy series, especially during Cy Spurrier's run, Legion goes on a journey to reclaim his mind, face his alters, and figure out whether he's a threat or a savior. He even creates a mental system to catalog and suppress the more dangerous personalities, though it's a constant battle. But no matter how much progress he makes, his mind is never truly silent. Aurora. She is a longtime member of Alpha Flight, Canada's prime superhero team, and the twin sister of Northstar, and she also suffers from the ID. Aurora and Northstar were separated as infants and grew up in very different worlds. She was raised in a strict Catholic boarding school where any expression of individuality or abnormal behavior was punished, and this repressive environment caused her powers to manifest under extreme emotional stress and led to the splitting of her personality. Her primary alters include Jean Mary, reserved, repressed, and anxious. She's the more vulnerable side, shaped by her traumatic upbringing and often in denial of her powers and identity. And there's Aurora, bold, flirtatious, rebellious, and confident. She embraces her powers, her sexuality, and her role as a superhero, and she is the public-facing persona, the one the world sees. These two personalities are often at odds, creating tension not just internally, but with those around her, especially her brother Northstar, who struggles to support her while dealing with her unpredictable shifts. At times, she has developed additional personalities, each responding to different emotional traumas or events in her life, though the main split remains between Jean and Aurora. Her DID directly affects her superhero work,
Her speed and light powers, derived from contact with her brother Northstar, are sometimes disrupted or enhanced depending on which personality is dominant, and she has disappeared for long stretches, leaving Alpha Flight and her allies in fear, only to return as a different version of herself. And she has been manipulated and institutionalized, sometimes by enemies, and sometimes even by those who believed they were helping her, adding further trauma and distrust to her mental state. And what makes her stand out is how deeply her condition is tied to her search for identity and freedom. She wants to be more than just someone's sister or teammate. She wants to be whole, but her mind, fractured by trauma and shaped by isolation, constantly pulls her in different directions. So her struggle is raw, and her pain is real, and her bravery lies in the fact that she keeps showing up anyway. Psylocke becomes Captain Britain. Betsy Braddock, also known as Psylocke, has worn many titles throughout her complex Marvel history: Telepath, Assassin, X-Men, and in Excalibur in 2019, Betsy steps into the role that once belonged to her brother, Brian Braddock, and becomes not just a protector of Britain, but a champion of the multiverse and Otherworld itself. To understand the significance of this, we have to go back to her origins. Betsy is Brian Braddock's twin sister, originally a telepath and skilled martial artist who for years operated as Psylocke. Her journey was already complicated. She spent years trapped in the body of the Japanese assassin, Kwanon, making her a warrior who constantly struggled with questions of identity and belonging. But despite this, she became one of the deadliest members of the X-Men, wielding her psychic blade with lethal precision. And during the dawn of X era, the mutant nation of Krakoa forms, and with it comes a resurgence of mutant influence across dimensions. The mystical realm of Otherworld, which serves as a nexus of realities, finds itself under threat. Traditionally, the protector of this realm is Captain Britain, a mantle that comes with the Amulet of Right, a mystical artifact of immense power. But when the original Captain Britain becomes corrupted by Morgan Le Fay, the amulet chooses Betsy instead. In that moment, she doesn't just inherit the title, she claims it. As Captain Britain, Betsy blends her formidable psychic abilities with the enchanted power of the amulet and forges her own path. She navigates the tensions between Britain and Krakoa, balancing her duties as a mutant ambassador with her role as a protector of British Isles. She faces distrust from the British government, skepticism from her fellow mutants, and even the mystical trials of Otherworld. But through it all, she remains resilient, carving out her place as a symbol of strength, unity, and hope. But most importantly, Betsy's Captain Britain isn't about leaving Psylocke behind. It's about embracing her full self. She carries both identities with her, not as burdens, but as sources of power. One of the wildest and most stylish identity swaps in recent Marvel history comes during the Fall of X era, when Nightcrawler takes on the mantle of the Uncanny Spider-Man. During Fall of X, the mutant nation of Krakoa collapses, and mutants worldwide become targets once again. Orcus, a human supremacist organization, launches coordinated attacks. For many mutants, it's a time of fear and exile. But for Nightcrawler, rather than hide in the shadows, Kurt embraces a new identity to fight back. That's when he becomes the Uncanny Spider-Man. Wearing a modified Spider-Man suit with his signature swashbuckler flair, complete with a blue and red color scheme tailored to him, Kurt swings into action in Uncanny Spider-Man 1 in 2023. His new persona serves several purposes. It allows him to operate in public spaces without immediately being identified as a mutant, and it lets him play with his natural agility, acrobatics, and teleportation in a new crowd-pleasing way. And of course, his powers aren't spider-based, and he even keeps his signature tail, wrapping it into his new combat moves, giving him an almost otherworldly presence as Spider-Man. But beneath the mask, this transformation is about more than tactics. Nightcrawler has always been a man of hope and resilience. Despite being demon-like in appearance, he has consistently been one of the kindest, most optimistic X-Men, believing in unity and compassion even when the world rejected him. So becoming the Uncanny Spider-Man allows him to symbolize those values, while masking his mutant identity from a public growing more hostile every day. And he even remarks that being Spider-Man is fun, something Kurt hasn't had much of in a world falling apart. But under the humor and swashbuckling charm, there's a deep pain. He's carrying the weight of Krakoa's fall, the loss of friends, and the constant pressure of being a mutant in hiding. And through this disguise, Kurt finds a way to keep fighting, without losing himself to despair.
Beast. When he first appeared, Hank looked mostly human, but possessed extraordinary intelligence, agility, and large hands and feet, which gave him incredible strength and balance. His real gift was often considered his brilliant mind, as he was one of the smartest scientists among the X-Men. Over time, Hank experimented on himself in an attempt to understand and control his mutation. These experiments altered his physical appearance. His body became covered in blue fur, and he developed sharper teeth, claws, and enhanced physical abilities, turning him into the more animalistic figure fans recognize today. In later comics, especially during Grant Morrison's New X-Men, Beast experienced a secondary mutation, and he evolved even further into a more feline-like form. His features became sleeker and more cat-like, with sharper senses, greater agility, and even stronger physical capabilities. Fearless. She was born blind, but developed powerful telepathic abilities after being transformed into a mutant by the X virus. With these powers, she could read minds, sense emotions, and perceive the world around her through psychic awareness. Her telepathy also allowed her to detect danger and communicate mentally with others, making her a valuable member of the Alpha Warriors. However, during a traumatic battle between her ally and Cable, Angela experienced intense psychological stress, and this moment triggered a secondary mutation caused by the unstable effect of the X virus interaction with her existing powers. As a result, her abilities evolved beyond simple telepathy. After the secondary mutation, Angela gained telekinesis, giving her the ability to move objects with her mind, and this power allowed her to push enemies away, lift objects, and manipulate her surroundings without physical contact. Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega. He is a rebellious and often arrogant student of the X-Men who possesses Omega-level telepathy. With his mind alone, he can read thoughts, manipulate memories, create powerful mental illusions, and project devastating psychic blasts that can overwhelm even experienced opponents. Beyond basic telepathy, Quentin can also create psionic constructs, shaping psychic energy into weapons, shields, or barriers. These constructs allow him to fight both mentally and physically, making him dangerous in combat. He can also enter the astral plane, influence the minds of large groups of people, and mentally communicate across vast distances. His powers are strong enough to rival some of the most experienced telepaths in the X-Men. What truly sets Quentin apart is his extraordinary intelligence. His mind processes information at incredible speeds, generating millions of thoughts every second, and this allows him to analyze situations, outthink enemies, and adapt quickly in battle. As a member of Krakoa's intelligence team, X-Force, Quentin has embraced his Omega-level status and continues to prove that he is one of the most powerful psychic mutants of his generation. Maggot. Instead of a normal digestive system, Maggot's body contains two massive sentient slug-like creatures named Eenie and Meanie. Because of this mutation, Maggot himself cannot eat food. Instead, the slugs leave his body and devour nearly any type of matter at incredible speed. Once they finish feeding, they return to his abdomen and transfer the absorbed energy into Maggot's body, temporarily granting him enhanced strength, durability, speed, and endurance, while also turning his skin a deep blue. Eenie and Meanie are highly intelligent and operate with a degree of independence from Maggot. They share a telepathic bond with him, allowing them to communicate and coordinate effortlessly. This connection also provides Maggot with a unique form of telepathic resistance. When telepaths attempt to read his mind, they encounter a disruptive psychic backlash caused by the presence of the slugs, even inducing fear or confusion in the attacker. The slugs can also help him recover from injuries, demonstrating symbiotic healing, such as helping reattach a severed limb after severe damage. And after a major confrontation involving Juggernaut and the intervention of Storm, Maggot underwent a dramatic transformation powered by divine energy. This event elevated him to an Omega-level mutant, greatly amplifying his abilities. Through the energy generated by Eenie and Meanie, Maggot can now increase his size to enormous proportions, potentially reaching colossal kaiju-like levels.